Howdy, howdy. Welcome to my tiny corner of the internet. Welcome to the Mayday Wage Rage radio stream. How's it going? Yeah, no, if anybody wants to come to the stage to come chat, you know, it's just the standard Mayday stream. Hopefully everybody's doing well. I'm going to make sure that YouTube is actually broadcasting it properly. So, let me double check on that. I'm going to put out an announcement in a little bit. Okay, it looks like it's going good on YouTube. So far, so good. Testing. Yeah, okay, it's working. Sweet. Alrighty. Man, end of the work week. How are you guys doing? You know, I hope the Wageway Express wasn't too terribly brutal on you guys when it comes to this work week. What's up, Mr. Bones? Welcome to the chat. How's it going, Jay? Hope you're doing well. Hopefully the Wageway Express or the Wage Week wasn't too terribly bad. Hopefully being in the wage cage wasn't too brutal this week for you guys. 9 people in the stream already. Nice. Welcome to the chat. So I'm going to be kind of, well, welcome Riley. Happy Mayday. I'm going to be swapping out between streaming a game, also streaming the Discord chat. So if anybody wants to come on the stage, you know, the YouTube or the Linktree has access to the Discord if anyone wants to come and chat. But yeah, preemptive like for the stream. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. So I'm getting destroyed by something. Oh, it's a stupid rat, man. It's almost knocking me to hell, but oh well. So yeah, welcome to my tiny corner of the internet. So, I was going to the urgent care earlier today, and is it just me or has everything just gotten more expensive? It's like, I remember when doctor's appointments didn't cost so much. What's up, Christian Duncan? Hope you're doing well. Welcome to the live stream. I need to get out of this cave before I die. But, you know, I went to the urgent care thing. It's like $160 for, you know, just getting a visit or whatever. You know, I feel like healthcare just continuously gets worse, lower quality, and they don't even diagnose the issues. Anybody else feel that way when it comes to, you know, just getting anything diagnosed? I don't think it's the doctor's fault. I think more or less when it comes to it, it's probably the insurance companies. You know, it's because they just kind of... I've never understood the mentality of insurance companies, because insurance companies go like this, okay? You know, the idea of an insurance company is that you give a company money so you can have the opportunity to argue why you should get some of it back. That's been the logic of insurance companies, and just completely baffles me how they just kind of weaseled themselves into a position where they just get so much money and power over people's lives. Yeah, no, $160 is the new doctor's office standard. And the funny part is like, you know, employers, when they talk about like full healthcare benefits, like even I've got a high deductible plan and I'm a white collar worker, you know, definitely, yeah, copays just get bigger and bigger. Okay, this looks like a way out of the cave. But, you know, it just gets worse and worse. It's just complete shitification of everything. Yeah, insurance is just everything. It's reverse gambling. But it's like, the logic is this. You have to pay money to argue why you should get some of that money that you paid into it back. For, you know, money you paid in. That's the logic of insurance that I just don't understand whatsoever. It's like, you know, it's your money to begin with. Like, if they decided to instead say, you know what, and, you know, obviously some people are gonna be against, like, government-sponsored, like, you know, insurance plans or whatever, right? But the idea is, like, what if, like, the government, I'm not saying this is, like, an actual legitimate policy proposal, but it's like, it's your money in the first place. Why don't they just say, like, okay, you know what, we're gonna allocate some of your money to the side, and then, you know, you get to use it. It's not gonna be something that people are gonna make a profit off of. It's your money at the end of the day. So when you have a rainy day, you know, you can tap into it. Like, shouldn't that be something that shouldn't be attached to a profit motive? Urgent care in my area is pretty decent. Even get some real doctors and not physician assistants. See, I just got a physician assistant, and she wasn't a bad person or anything like that, but it's like $160 just to get visited for like 15 minutes. It's just completely crazy. My insurance, after the fact, went from $120 in 2025 to $340 in 2026. I had to officially cancel it because I just don't make enough money to justify it. Yeah, I get that. I 100% get that. You know, everything just gets shittier and more expensive. You know what I hate the most about this country is that when it comes to the cost of living crisis, it's like everything goes up in price except for the price of labor. You ever notice that? It's funny that the fact is like when we work in the workplace, you know, we have to make our justification to our bosses why we deserve even a 3% raise or whatever, right? You know, that's, you know, part of your yearly annual review. You have to justify that you've worked hard or gone like 10,000 extra miles to justify that you deserve just even that 3% raise. what do the capitalists justify their price hikes on everything? Like, do they ever justify, like, why they charge us, like, extra money for the exact same thing, if not a shittier quality service in the first place? Are you winning, son? Maybe. I don't know, man. I don't think anybody's winning in this economy. But, you know, it's like they don't ever have to justify why they, cause price hikes on anything. They just do it anyways. Also, anybody's free to come to chat. Just raise your hand if you want to chill in chat. You know, I'm just gonna be doing a standard live stream or whatever. If anybody wants, the whole point of Wage Rage Radio is anybody's allowed to come and chat. Oh, we got somebody who wants to come up on stage. What's up, glowing one? Welcome to the chat.
The audio situation here. There we go. What was that again?
What's up, man? Hi. Yeah, welcome to the chat, man.
Hey.
How you doing?
So,
TIE Fighter, you're already mod. You can come to the stage.
Yeah, sorry.
I think the real problem with capitalism is the incestuous relationship with government. Capitalism, when working correctly, one, has a lot of competition. That's very important.
Yeah.
Two, it does not have a relationship with the referee. It does not get benefits from the referee. That's another problem. And the way that charters work, if you're a founder of a company and your company fails, you should fail along with it.
See, the funny part is I don't even disagree with that. I like competition. I think competition is genuinely a good thing. The problem is that whoever ends up being competitive ends up, you know, manipulating the government to benefit themselves. So that's by definition anti-competitive monopoly garbage. And so the thing about it is that, you know, I would support, like, even if I were to take power tomorrow, I would still allow, like, some degree of market competition, is because some things are just better under competition in the first place. You know, but some things, like, obviously, infrastructure, industry, like, those things need to be nationalized because of our, not industry, but, like, things that are naturally monopolistic need to essentially be, like, nationalized or turned into state-owned enterprises.
Oh, speaking of that, Alistair, did you know that I just found out that firefighters and police officers, EMT, especially EMTs, are...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. I don't know. Here's the kind of thing. I was driving around town and I noticed, like, gas prices are now like $4.20. You know, it really is just a matter of time before more people just kind of pop off at this point. It's kind of crazy to say, but, like, people are already on, like, razor-thin margins. It's not really much longer before people start, like, you know, losing their minds in this economy. So... yeah. See, I think we need, like, a hybrid economy, like, where we have some things that are just nationalized is because they make sense as, like, you know, state-owned enterprises, as opposed to just, like, you know, obviously, like, some things, you know, if you use antitrust laws, you can make them competitive, but some things just should straight up be nationalized. Who is he talking to? I'm talking to a buddy on the stage. Anybody's free to come to the stage. That's the whole point of Wage Rage Radio, is anybody's allowed to come on the stage and just chat. So, you know, he got muted, ultra-liberal monarchy. Okay. Who is he talking to? Oh. Go on. So. It's all good, man. No rush. We're just kind of chilling and chatting on the stage.
And the thought's gone. Never mind.
It's all good, man. Like I said, it's open stage night anyways. I usually just kind of chat with anybody. What's up, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Clove?
Chive.
Chive,
just
okay, I'm gonna call you Chive.
Guy.
How you doing, man?
Good, man. What's going on?
You can't hear the stage. Are you serious? Oh, wow. Try and say something.
What? No, hold up.
That's because you gotta play around with the audio output.
Oh, it's playing. Oh, yeah, it was another tab. I'm gonna keep this tab open because so you can't actually hear it. Okay, well, there you go. Now you should be able to hear the stage. Who is talking to? Yeah. Now we can. Okay, yep, that explains it. Alright. But yeah. What's up, Tribe? Welcome to the chat. Hope you're doing alright. No one can hear you on the stage. Totally good, man. Figured out what it was. We can hear you.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Chive speak first. What's up, man?
Nothing much, bro. What? Nothing much. Just figured I'd tune in before I have to go to sleep and go wage. But you know.
Yeah, it's kind of late. I started this stream a little bit late, is because I had to end up going to the doctor. And funny enough, $160 copay wasn't fun exactly, and I went to go get something to eat. And so I was like, oh, I guess I'm gonna have to start the stream a little bit late. Hope everybody's doing. How was your work week, man?
It's been pretty good. How was your May Day?
Pretty good. I see a lot of people actually being pretty active during May Day. I see a lot of protests, see a lot of marching on the streets, so I can't complain. It looks like more people are kind of waking up to it. It kind of figures that like the gaslighting only goes so far before people started to wake up to it. Now, I think this is just personally the beginning. I think it's going to continue going on. China has flying drones that drop,
Yeah, now I
gun
remember what I was trying to say. Shit.
Oh.
Okay.
If you have all the money, and this is the thing. After Ford versus what was it again? Ford versus
Dodge.
No, Dodge versus Ford. It got this idea into the capitalist head, into the elite class, that profits could be made infinite. No, they can't. And if they could, you would destroy the whole point of capitalism existing, because capitalism only exists as far as there's a limited amount of resources. And so far, by complete coincidence, by the way, we found out that capitalism works best to allocate those resources when it works correctly.
Yeah.
And if you
See,
hoover up all the money, people are just gonna say, fuck it, I'm just gonna take whatever the fuck I want. I'm not gonna starve.
Not so much about infinite money. It's about the fact that, like, if you can use technology to make things produce cheaper and faster, more efficiently, i.e., like, then yeah, you could probably get more profits. But the thing is what capitalists do is they just underpay people so much. But that's not a substitute for real value. No value, no extra value is produced. If it takes the same amount of labor or work to create something, you're not making any new value. You're just engaging in rent seeking when you're just literally cutting people's wages. And so that's the thing about, the whole, like, you could just make infinite profit. Technically you can. It's really predicated on, like, technological advancement, on how efficiently you can produce things.
I don't think we have the same idea for profit. I mean, like, output. Like,
yeah, no, I mean output as well. Like, I'm talking about real output. Like, the thing is the amount of work it takes to produce something, is a fixed amount of work that needs to be done, right? But the thing is, if you can do it more efficiently with some technology, like the invention of the steam engine or some factory, then technically it can get a significantly lot cheaper to actually produce something. That's what I mean. Real, like, concrete output, real tangible material wealth that's cheaper and more efficiently produced.
Yeah, but that's on the manufacturing side. I'm talking about the consumer side. If you don't have anything to trade, this is not a equal relationship between the producer class and the consuming class.
Yeah,
and technically, yes, you can have infinite output, but for that you will require infinite raw materials, which we do not have.
Yeah, on both sides, it really just comes down to an ownership issue, honestly. When you have a class of people that owns things and a class of people that just needs to rent them from the people that own them, you're always just going to have the permanent underclass. That's just what they want. You will own nothing to be happy.
Yeah, I do think that, like, with the existence of, like, almost trillionaires and billionaires today, like, what really is offset their levels of wealth is just the fact is that technologies that advance to such a degree that, like, any additional value that they squeeze from people just goes unnoticed, is because the fact is like, technologies advance producing things much more efficiently. So, like, that wealth inequality is allowed to exist just because the fact is we have technological advancements to, like, hide that wealth inequality, when any other situation would probably be terrible. I'm just fed up with working to make someone else 92 times more money than my labor. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I keep saying it plenty of times, Matrix, is the fact is that, like, when it comes to it, it's like, I don't have a problem if somebody's making more money than me, but the fact is they keep changing the games and the rules to essentially make it where the average person has to work so much just to exist. It's almost like a rigged game. Minimum wage in 1964.
That's what I was talking about.
Trying to read a comment.
You cannot have value without her.
I don't mean to interrupt, man. Give me 1 sec. But no, like, I do want to read the comments. I don't want to kick people off the chat, but please don't interrupt, man. Minimum wage in 1964 was 125. The value of silver in 5 pre-1964 quarters is 71 USD. But according to today's CPI, and 125, 1964, $13 in 2026. Make it make sense. Yeah, I don't disagree, dude. The funny part is somebody did. I mentioned in last stream is that like when the income you need today to have the same buying power as somebody making a minimum wage in 1971 is $66 an hour. Right, now I'll bring you back up on the stage. Welcome to the stage if you want to come, Demo. So, howdy, how's it going?
Hi, I just wanted to pop in real quick, chime in on it, but a lot of the problem with the capitalist economic model just in general for long-term usage is it just doesn't... You have the monopoly. Everything monopolizes. It's inevitable. You can't get... Technological advancement drives the cost of everything down, which means you can't make profit.
Yeah.
If you can't make profit, you can't make profit. Like, that's kind of the problem with technological advancement. I do think at a certain point, we're reaching a point right now where technology has plateaued because we are not in a better model of economic operation.
Yeah, monopolies, here's kind of thing. If something is naturally monopolistic, it makes sense to nationalize it and bring it under some kind of social control. Like, I totally understand that. So, I agree with you on that one.
The problem is that you have things like like let's say the tech sector, for example. Great example of that. It has brought us mass surveillance, all this, giga crises, basically, that's about to happen, that's spiraling out of control, as now you have these governments that are now capable of not just seeing everything you do, it's monitoring every transaction, every single thing, and also now having, with a lot of the newer AI technology, a method of actually relatively easily enforcing that.
Well,
You're already
AI is
seeing
really good
in the UK popping up, for example,
at processing very large amounts of information. So that is going to help with the surveillance state. They're actually trying to fully implement that. To what extent it can do, like, I don't know. That's up for discussion. But yeah, murderers can be forgiven and let out of jail. Those who steal from the rich are locked forever. Yeah, you gotta love the double standards. Like when you step on the toes of the wealthy, all of a sudden, like, you basically catch their ire. My rough estimate is to the attempt to maintain the standard of living I was used to. I'd have to effectively double what I did. I mean, I've said it for a while now, Jay. I feel like I was making more money as an intern a decade ago than I do as a full-time engineer, and that's probably just the case. So yeah, go on, Demo, if you want to chat.
Yeah, it's just you have a lot of problems with a lot of problems with our economy. Comes from the fact that we never. Let me phrase this. Sorry, it's late and I am tired, so brain's not the best.
I'm an electrical engineer at Nova Spec, so. It used to pay a lot better, but the thing is, it did not like appreciate with inflation. It used to, like, the funny part is it used to basically be one of those safe jobs. It still kind of is, but the thing is, it does not have the prestige or pay that it used to have. Well, that's kind of the thing, Benelli. Is the main? Like, the funny part is you can overload them. Like the thing is like we outnumber them. Like that's the funny part. Is like they could. The thing is, all they can do is engage in bullshit lawfare and do propaganda smearing against us. That's all they can do. All they can do is just endlessly deceive to basically get their way. They can't really stop us any other way. I do want to go into it a little bit, but like the Mohawk Valley procedure is a 9-point plan that was used to basically dismantle unionization all the way up till the 70s, and it basically relies on a combination of lawfare, bullshit pretexting, abusing the police, and using private armies to quash, striking labor unions, and then basically engaging in smear campaigns. A common talk point, you've seen it in my own comment section, is that anybody who talks about working class politics is treated as some kind of benevolent external actor or agitator, and that's a part of the Mohawk Valley procedure effectively that companies started employing. Now, back in the day, in the 1890s, because since it's May Day, might as well talk about labor struggles, is that they employed much more concrete methods of intimidation to break down striking union workers. Nowadays, they use a combination of psychological warfare, lawfare, and various psychological tactics to union bust and intimidate people into submission. That's why I call it the HRification of society. Yeah, let's get some green hats in the chat. It's May Day. It's time to post some green hats in the chat. May Day means workers' revolt or something, right? So let's show some solidarity by getting some green hats in the chat. So because I'm pretty sure everybody's come back from a long week. The funny thing is that I was talking to a couple of people in my latest community post. And one person was talking about how you can organize the working class effectively. And the interesting thing is that, like, this is their logic, okay? They're trying to strip the working class of as much free time as possible. They don't want us to have free time, is because in their mind, they think if they keep us occupied as like good little wages in the wage cage, you know, we'll never organize, form workers' parties, form labor unions if we're too preoccupied to think. And that kind of goes in the mentality of how they've done propaganda against us. But, you know, if you look at history on the formations of labor unions, you know, the people who organized worker movements, you know, back in the 1890s, were doing it in conditions where they worked 12 hours a day for 6 days a week. And even in situations like that, when they had the least free time ever possible, and these people were factory workers, that did not stop people from organizing to fight for their interests. And the funny part is, welcome, I love to see the green hats in my chat. I love you guys are great. Bread and Circus, the classic. They have to. See, the funny part about that, Eagle, is they have to give Bread and Circus, because Bread and Circus, it's funny that when people kind of detract us saying that, like, you know, one guy was going on about how, you know, white collar workers are not actually working class or nonsense like that, right? Is because the fact is, for somebody not to be working class or not to advocate for working class politics, that would imply that they're enfranchised by the system. So let's do some numbers real quick. To be enfranchised into the system where, you know, you have no reason to engage in class politics, you should be making $150K a year so you can afford the average house, which is $450K. You know, so if we're going to have a metric, the average person has to be making $150K a year to have no reason to engage in class politics, because you have more than enough money to afford the average house, enough money to save, and enough money to pay for utilities and other things, right? But that's not where we're at now, is it? I don't even make $150K. I'm a full-time engineer. I have a high deductible health plan at my workplace. I'm anything but enfranchised, but it's kind of funny that, like, kind of you employ these tactics of gaslighting the working class that they're not actually working class. And it's similar to the great democratic gaslight I've talked about on this channel a couple of times, is where they gaslight the majority into not being the majority. So
yeah,
it's funny how they sell
make you feel alone, man. They really bank on that shit. It all falls in line with what you're saying.
Yeah, no, that's essentially it. They like to gaslight us as, like, they'll say our block is tiny, that we don't exist, and they'll try and individualize us as much as possible and say that we're against the true majority, which they're propping up and gaslighting us with, right? And so, you know, the more you kind of just recognize what their propaganda tactics are to make you feel alone, make you feel like you're standing in the minority. But that's also why I say so much why I'm an elitist, is because at the end of the day, it's like, you know, you're going to have to take that step to stand alone for people to follow. It's like, at the end of the day, it's like people, and that's okay, because most people don't want to put their neck on the line on a lot of things, because most people, like, you know, we have friends and families who don't want to deal with, like, getting blasted for standing out. But it takes an act of bravery or courage to recognize that even though you're being gaslit, to stand up in your self-interest, regardless of what the so-called or fictitious majority they prop up in front of us says. I didn't mean that. No, it's all good, man. No. I'm not saying you meant anything. It's all good, Eagle. I feel like working class is basically self-explanatory to anybody who knows. Yeah, no, that's the thing. You know, anybody who has to sell their labor in order to survive, they have to sell their labor in order to earn a wage, is working class. Not because, see, the funny part is one guy came in my comment section and says that, you know, so many people want to pretend to be working class. They want to claim the idea of working class. My friend, working class just means you sell your labor in order to survive. That's all it's ever meant. It's never been anything but that. It's kind of like, you know, people try to turn the term proletarian into something greater. It's like, you know, if you go down to like actual Marx, okay, you know, proletarian synonymous with almost being a slave. It's because the fact is you are part of an oppressed class where you have to engage in uneven conditions to perpetuate your own existence. What do you think of the left today? I hate it. That's why I went my own way. I started giving my own 2 cents, Mr. Merles, because the current left is kind of cucked. They don't have the ability to have an honest discussion about anything, and they can't even admit that when it comes to foreign labor, that they do use it to undercut the domestic working class. And until they can have an honest discussion on these things, and I'm not saying they have to go to the far right to basically talk about these things, but to have an honest discussion about it, they're going to continuously spin their wheels talking about these things. Yeah, both the left and the right are bad. You're right about the working class gaslight. They made up the phrase serving class, claiming that the most jobs should just be a step to a better job, and then they offer no better. You know, the funny part is college was supposed to be the gateway into a supposed real job, and they use that to antagonize blue collar workers for the longest time, and now they've kind of flipped it on its head. Now they're basically rug pulled all the white-collar workers and said, now the true working class is the blue-collar working class, and the white-collar working class is not actually working class. They're called the credentialed class. Yes, I had somebody come in my chat and say that I'm not working class is because I have a degree. Even if the degree doesn't mean much nowadays, that it doesn't mean you will get a high-paying job or a one-way ticket into the middle class anymore. But, you know, it's a new fictitious class that they invented just to antagonize the white-collar working class. And I've said this in a couple of videos previously, is that here's kind of the tactic that they employ against us, okay? If you're a part of, like, any particular class, okay? Like, they will talk about any kind of made-up class. They'll call it the remote worker class, they'll call it the credentialed class, they'll call it the step on, you know, to the next job class, but they will never, ever say that the true enemy is the billionaire class. They never will. They'll never go after the capital class, is because the fact is the ones that are running this propaganda are a part of the capital class. So they'll invent some new nonsense class, which will always be synonymous for some section of the working class. Is advertising allowed in this chat? Personally, I don't care, but if you're spamming, I might have to ask you to stop. But, like, that's about it. Like, you know, I don't mind you talking about your stuff, but, like, the thing is as long as you're not, like, taking up the entire chat, I don't mind you if you put yourself out there a little bit. The only thing the left is good for is making strongly worded letters and wagging their fingers, but not do shit. This is kind of an interesting one, Christian, is because the thing is if you want to engage in real politics, if you want to get your way in any sort of regard, you're gonna have to know what other people's interests are to essentially strong-arm them into getting what you want. And that's when you get into real politics. When you start understanding what people's interests are and how to use it to get, you know, get what you want, and you drop the morality stuff, because finger wagging doesn't get you anywhere. Finger wagging is a set of politics from the boomer generation, in my honest opinion. And the reason I say it's a part of the boomer generation is because they grew up in a time of relative abundance where if they acted like children and threw a temper tantrum like children, and they got in the streets, laid on the ground, and started whining and screaming like banshees, you know, their parents, you know, the silent generation will be like, you know, what, Timmy, you're right. You know, maybe we'll do, you've seen it even in the 1970s TV shows. It's like all of a sudden they'll capitulate to their bratty kids and just give them whatever they want. Right? And so the finger wagging thing, or this kind of stern, strongly worded letter stuff, is something that's explicitly of the boomer generation. And so, you know, the funny part is that kind of politics is going out the window, is because at the end of the day, it doesn't achieve anything. Is because when you're working or even dealing with a group of people whose interests are so malignant to your own, eventually finger wagging and moral shaming just doesn't work. I have an idea. Let's help Griffith achieve his dream of building his own kingdom and have him rule over us. Then our life will be easy. You know, you're not the first person to come in the chat and kind of just talk endlessly about the, like, persona. You're free to do whatever, man. Yeah, go on, man. Go on, demo.
So you have a lot of the historical empires. There usually was at least a subset of the population going after that for a moral reason. Because, like, you could look at the history of most of the European empires, and they committed heinous acts. Like, acts that make some of the stuff, the biblical stuff, look tame.
Yeah, like King Leopold of Belgium.
King Leopold in Belgium, the British in India, etc., etc. So
no, I agree.
You have these, they have internal opposition that was putting this moralist angle. However, the profits coming in from doing these things were so massive that they could get past the government. They didn't care. The people in charge didn't care. Most of the people under them didn't care because they got basically, an increased standard of living, or they were so heavily impoverished and beaten down that they didn't really notice.
Yeah.
You can see it in Victorian England with the stratification of the classes heavily existing.
You know, the British Empire is kind of an interesting one, is because the fact is with, like, all the rent seeking going on right now, it's like some people have pointed out that it was that this is just basically the Enclosure Acts all over again. I don't know if I fully agree with that parallel, but it is definitely the privatization of everything. Like, they have a business model in the back of their head that I personally don't agree with, that they're kind of shoving down. It's like, you will own nothing and you'll rent everything. Even McDonald's is doing this thing where you pay $65 a month for unlimited food. And I don't understand how that's ever been successful as a business model, but they're trying to apply it there as well. But the thing is like, unlimited food buffets aren't anything new, but they're acting like they're reinventing something new. I would disagree, even due to a fractional reserve banking, even though printing 20x the deposit is no different than rights to print money like the Fed. Okay, well, yeah, that's just monetary policy. But yeah, FJB, you can totally come to the stage. You just got to join the Discord server and then come, raise your hand here. I don't know if he is in the chat. I think Saucy Sam. All right, what's up, man? I'll pull you to the stage.
Hey, what's up?
Nice PFP, man.
Hey, thank you. I have some I have some thoughts stirring about, and I was wondering if I could get some feedback about them. So, I spent a lot of time on Reddit. I've been a mod on a lot of different subs, been here and there, and it's getting to the point where the dead internet theory is kind of like in your face every day.
Yeah,
and I'm
true.
kind of thinking like, all of this, like, if you say something that's like against whatever the interests of the fat cats, they don't even need to like necessarily delete your post. Like you'll get shadow banned, you'll get your thread griefed by bots, you'll get downvoted to hell while like LLM responses get downvoted up. And I was kind of watching something about there's this guy named, I think, David McCarrican or something. He's talking about the fourth frontier. It's like basically it's like, you know how there's like first place is like your home, second place is like your work, third place is like, I don't know, you hang out, and there's like fourth place is this idea that like you can get, like, online is kind of bad, but if you could link online to real life, you could sorry, let me just get some breath.
It's all good, man. Sometimes I talk too long and I run out of breath too, and some people like complain about it in the after stream.
Thank you. Let me just collect myself. So it's like basically the idea is you have a social network tied to like a physical place, so you don't have a whole bunch of bots or people from like foreign countries coming and just like disrupting whatever you're doing. So you could have like a human social network online again. And I kind of went over like several different ideas that are not based on like physical locality, you know, like CAPTCHA variations on CAPTCHAs and stuff, cryptography, blockchain, but it kind of all boils down to like, yeah, AI can fake it, and like if you have enough money, like sure. And so like the last thought I had, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's like, here's what I think the internet's gonna go to, and this is my honest opinion. The internet's gonna go to the direction where it's gonna be more or less communities that basically build like trust in a sort of sense. Because here's the kind of thing: for a long time, people use clout as a proxy for truth, and that's how we got all normie pilled with the internet. It's like as soon as the normies started saying, well, these stats, you know, must mean that like this person is most authentic, you know, but at the same time they monetized clout. It's like, you know, at the same time, it's like you can't really decipher truth that way. And so you're kind of leaving the era of like where you can really use clout or numbers on a computer screen as like proxy for truth. You know, that's going to be the ultimate test method. So it's going to be based more on like, you know, I guess like having trust with your audience, I suppose. And so that's personally the direction I think the internet's going to go, is that you're just going to have people kind of go off into their knit communities, and you can't really use clout as a proxy to say how true somebody is saying something in. You know, somebody could have like, you know, very little viewers, and they could be, you know, right on something, and somebody could have like a gorillion viewers. Like if you did it purely based on clout, you know, you'd basically be saying that like Mr. Beast is like a prophet of truth or some stupid stuff, but that's nonsense now.
So I was thinking about how to like tie locally, because like the guy was like the fourth frontier, like I forget what his name is, like David McCarricash. He was like saying like there's like idea of hubs, like there's like different places where people go like in person, and like I don't know, it was mainly geared towards like trailer parks and RVs and like kind of like nomadic style of folks. And I'm thinking like, well, this is cool, but it's not really for me. Like I just want like Reddit, but without like bots and like propaganda. And so I was thinking like, what if I was just like talking to like Grok, and I was like, what if everyone has to go get like a physical card, like I don't know, like a from your gas station or Walmart or QR code.
That's another idea of like digital ID that they're trying to do. Is so digital ID is like had this idea is because the fact is they actually, platforms do have a bot problem, you know.
But
so
imagine
like
without ID, like all of that, you just show up, like maybe they'll like have a CCTV camera footage, but you can pay with cash, like little like physical like little like monetary value for the card. Just the whole point is so you have to like go from store to store to store if you actually want to like build this like a bot farm or something.
I got a better idea. Like here's kind of thing, because like the whole bot farm thing, you can kind of tell which content creators like abuse like, you know, whatever it's called, bot farms for clout or whatever. It's like they, I wouldn't say everybody. Like the thing is like, you know, they might have a huge sub like count, but then they don't have like a lot of, you know, viewers or like commenters on their comment section. You know, they might not necessarily have a lot of interaction. You know, usually is like a one-dimensional metric they end up paying for or whatever, right? Yeah, but, you know, a lot of people do. So whenever I see like somebody with like 100k subs, but their views are like maybe 1k per video, either they really pissed off their audience or they're just botting the shit out of their sub count or something. That's just what I assume. But again, I've never had the mentality of using cloud as a proxy for truth. So it's like one of those things. It's like somebody comes in basically like in my chat, and I used to have that a lot. Some people would say like, okay, well, you know what? You're a tiny microtuber. Your opinion doesn't matter. And I just tell them, yeah, well, okay, go back to watching Mr. Beast, bro. I'm not here for your validation. I'm just here to give my 2 cents, and you're free to take it or leave it.
Watch
And that's been my
yourself.
mentality since day one. It's like, you know, anything I say, you don't have to agree with it. I'm never going to be the kind of person being like, well, your side's not popular, my side's popular, therefore you're wrong. It's just not my shtick.
That's fine. I'm just kind of here to like poke holes in my own ideas because I feel like there's something here, like a locally based social network that just like clears out all the noise. Maybe it won't be like for the big creators, but there's got to be a niche for like people who actually want the truth, like actually like from like real people.
Just
because there's gonna be a lot of
thinking,
like,
man. That's my best bet. It's like, just like
propaganda, a lot of brainwashing, a lot of stuff. Like, even if you say something about a local politician, you'll get fucking swarmed by like crazy shit. Just
the people always get the rulers they deserve. If these people are real people and they're just kind of being duped because they're like, well, I'm gonna follow this person is because they're popular, but they say everything I disagree with. Well, then these are the politicians you deserve. These are your leaders because you're an idiot. But like at the end of the day, like,
people start to catch up, they're gonna look for a place where like that's free of all this nonsense.
I don't think you'll ever get rid of it. It's just over socialized midwittery, and that even existed before the internet, right? You know, it's no different like in high school when people were pretending to be the popular dipshits. It's not anything new. Like at one point or another, you're just gonna have to accept that people have to engage in some level of critical thinking.
Sure, you're gonna get dipshits, but like you're not gonna get mass manufactured dipshit.
Yeah, you're not wrong, but again, it's like, you know, the whole appeal to popularity is just a strong social force for the normies to fall in line. But again, that's not anything new. Everybody's like trying to like take advantage of that to basically make themselves seem like they're the more popular side than they actually are. And so, you know, I've seen it with the left a lot of the time. The left focuses on like appealing to the so-called masses, but they never can. They're actually more unpopular than they've ever been. But they keep trying to reach the nebulous masses. And so what you should do instead is stop focusing on like numbers or clout or whatever and just start talking about ideas. That's more important, my honest opinion. But again, it's like, you know, if you can't use, it's just ad populorum, essentially. It's like, you know, using popularity as like a proxy for what is true. And, you know, again, you know, if you want to be an over-socialized midwit, some people are going to do that. I'm not one of those kinds of people. And I don't think the vast majority of people in my audience are like that, so...
But I think like self-selecting to get a code at a gas station just so you can log onto a Reddit clone. That's
should this
like, you're not like an over-socialized midwit.
I'll put that again.
Oh, one sec, Ben. Yeah, I'll bring you on the stage. Just let the other guy finish. Sorry about that. But yeah, go on, Saucy.
Oh, I was just saying, like, if you're self-selecting to go buy a fucking card to get access Reddit at like a physical location, like, you've kind of like placed yourself outside of the over-socialized midwit bubble, don't you think?
I don't know about that. I mean, like, here's the thing. Here's the thing about digital ID, okay? My problem with digital ID, or even, like, the age verification stuff, is that the fact is that, like, these companies are not making any demonstrable effort to protect the private info of regular day people. They want you to upload your ID, and then they end up, like, leaking it. Like, unironically, like, Discord, when they started doing age verification, they didn't delete your IDs. They stored it. And some underpaid Indian was bribed $500, and he leaked, like, thousands of people's, like driver's licenses.
Okay, but imagine it's like Quasi 4chan where there's
here's the thing. Here's the thing with the Indian thing. It wasn't like yes, it was a bribe, but functionally, they knew this was going to happen, and they wanted it to happen because here's how the whole stealing IDs and information ecosystem goes. It goes from the hacker to the seller in the dark web, and that resurfaces in a information tracking company, which then those companies, you know, the ones that conveniently left these data centers so poorly defended, then that's how they get their data from you. And technically, they did nothing illegal.
Yeah. No, I agree. Confused about the concept of free will and critical thinking. Yeah, no, that's kind of the thing. It's like, what is going to be a hidden blessing, in my honest opinion, is that because AI is being used as a tool to because the thing is like, we're past the 2016 election. My honest opinion, this is a hot take, the 2016 election is when the internet played a major role in participating into an election. And then a lot of people saw the internet as this free real estate to essentially, you know, have their own propaganda operations and make their case, right? The thing is, people realized, even government agencies realized that they could basically payroll people to shitpost on the internet and spread their side's propaganda, right? And so, you know, now everybody is participating, and not just the US government, not just like, you know, the CIA, FBI, there's even Ukrainian propaganda battalions, you know, NAFOIDs or whatever, right? You know, there's FSB Russia bots. Like, the thing is, everybody's trying to get a slice of the internet, like, propaganda pie to pay their own, like, thing forward, right? And so the thing is that people are going to do it dishonestly. And unfortunately, at one point or another, there's just so much noise on it. You just want to walk away from it and just kind of like step away from it and start looking at things from a different perspective and recognize that, like, okay, there's multiple. When you look at somebody's interest, you don't have to listen to what they say to understand like what their politics are going to be. And so if you play it from the perspective of understanding people's interests and recognizing whatever they say is usually just a post hoc rationalization of what benefits them, you know, then you can engage in more honest terms with them. And that's usually my rule of thumb when it comes to engaging with people on the internet or just in general. Hell, even in real life, even in the workplace. When you know somebody's interest and you know what you have that is something of value to them, you can bargain with it to essentially get your way. HVAC by day, learn C at night. See, that's not a bad idea, Lewism, is because, you know, while I complain about engineering not necessarily being as prestigious as it used to be, it still is a stable field. But the problem is, my honest opinion is I think the work that comes with it is not worth the pay anymore. It does not have the pay and prestige that it used to have, but it's still a stable field. You know, blue-collar work is also there too. Boycott OpenAI. Support decentralized AI like Bittercenter, Tau, and its subnets, even though it doesn't prevent the spread of autonomous weapon systems. You can't really stop that. That's the thing. Like, I 100% support open source AI. Funny enough, DeepSeek is open source. You know, you can actually download distilled models or whatever. But you can't really stop the autonomous weapon one, is because the fact is, like, anybody can, you know, build something in the garage, and you can't really stop that. Like, somebody's going to try and do something with it. Doesn't matter what it is. People are going to take advantage of whatever opportunity presents themselves. If you try to, like, you know, play defensive overly, it's kind of a losing battle. Even the CEO of Anthropic said that critical thinking would be in part a larger demand in the age of AI, so people don't get tricked by AI or midwits. Yeah, look at boomers. Just look at boomers and how much AI slop that they fall for, like, all the dang time. They fall for it, you know, endlessly on it. And now here's the funny part about AI, is that a lot of people were saying for a long time that it was going to replace everybody's jobs, okay? The interesting thing that it had me thinking, what are the alternative open source you'd recommend? Just, you know, DeepSeek, that's my honest opinion. But the thing is, what I think AI is going to do pretty well at, and this is kind of related to a little bit of software, is because I don't think people talked about vibe coders becoming the future, but the thing is that, like, what happens is AIs hallucinate. But what AI is really good at is understanding, like, core logical content and then transcoding into something else. So say you have, like, some kind of program in, like, Python or whatever, right? And you want to if you have, like, an equivalent logical structure, you could, you know, transpile it in C. Like, I would imagine that if you understand, like, whatever logical system you're trying to implement, like, AI would be very good at implementing it. I think reading code is probably more important than writing code, is because the fact is, if you can understand what logical system you're trying to implement, AI is very good at that. You know, you don't have to spend, like, a bunch of time typing, like, 200, 400 lines of code. It'll do it for you, and then all you've got to do is read it and test it yourself, and then you're good to go. I mean, you might have to modify the output, which is like 90% of the time anyways. That's my case. DeepSeek is
so
open
basically
weights,
like
thanks for telling me, man.
Google. Sorry.
What's up?
So basically like a Google Translate for coding.
You can use it for a lot of things. It's not so much like what language you're using. It's more about like the logic you're trying to implement. And that's kind of the funny part, is because most people get sucked in the syntax. If you ever go on Stack Overflow, I've talked about it being the place where you could ask a question, even like a newbie question, you'd have your intelligence insulted and still not have your question answered, right? The thing about it is that, like, a lot of like syntax trip ups that you would have with like various languages, like maybe C or C++, you know, the more like advanced, you know, stuff, or more difficult stuff. I wouldn't say it's more advanced, just the more difficult stuff. Is that, you know, essentially, you know, you don't need to know the details of a language to basically, you don't need to be perfect at it to understand how to transpile if you understand the logical structures, because languages are just languages. They're meant to express ideas, and so same with logical structures. So understanding how to critically think and problem solve is much more important than necessarily whatever particular language you're trying to express your ideas in. But writing code without AI is fun. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't necessarily mind writing code, but I do like having results. And that's kind of thing. It's like the larger the project, the more complex the project is, the less you want to spend time writing it, and the more you just want results. And so I don't know if I would say I enjoy writing code. I enjoy implementing logical structures and then making it work. So that's what I would say is a critical difference. I find it interesting that I hear about people using AI to generate code, but I never hear about AI being used to help patch existing code for flaws or memory links or issues. Here's what these stupid companies are going to do. They're going to create a bunch of vibe-coded garbage that's unmaintainable, and then they're going to hire back their software engineers being like, fix this, and they're going to try and underpay you. When they do hire you back, don't forget to like charge for like a $200K salary or something like that.
No, not just the salary. You need to ask for everything.
Full benefits too.
Like stock options, fucking a good office, dude. If they hire you back, don't undersell yourself. Sell yourself, oversell yourself.
So I like
because eventually they'll come crawling back to you.
Yeah,
has a story to tell.
Yeah, go for it, Ty.
Well, Asuna here in the on the stage.
Oh, is he been? Oh yeah, Austin has been talking wanting to talk for a while. If he wants to talk, yeah, he can go next.
About private equity, I think it might have something to do with. Topic.
Pissed off wage. Yeah, that's a fucking sick name, dude. We need more wage ragers. That's the whole point of Wage Rage Radio is we're fucking ragers. Work from home, no exceptions. Absolutely, dude. You know what? No name. I was trying to basically ask if we could do, work from home, but they are, despite the fact being in a cost of living crisis, despite gas is literally $4.19 where I'm at. They were insistent, Alistair, you have to come to the office because we need you to waste your money. And like automatically, I'm just kind of like, I am less enthusiastic of doing real concrete work other than wasting people's times when like they do shit like that. It's like, so you're telling me
the funny
to
part
do
about
more
that
work,
is,
but not giving me a cost of living raise. And I'm like, I'm incentivized to just quit and just like waste your money as much as possible, eating snacks in the fucking cafeteria and just like fucking off. But yeah, welcome to the chat, Whale. Oh well, Goddess. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to Wage Rage Radio. I know you put your hand up, so I'll let you speak next.
What up? No, let this guy talk. This private equity guy.
Yeah, go on private equity guy.
Okay.
Austin, go ahead.
Yeah, so just some quick backstory. It's a car wash company. It's actually one of like the biggest ones in Colorado and Arizona. Not going to name it specifically, but the private equity company bought it and owns like 4 other car washes like all across the United States. So I'm a manager there, and I get to be in like all the fucking meetings with like the like CFO and like people like pretty high up in this like company. And it's kind of like almost it's hilarious in a not funny way how like out of touch like a lot of these people are. Like we get like secret shoppers that like go through like the car washes, and like one of our like rules or whatever is like shine or whatever, like smiling and being super fucking like happy and like upselling like all these like customers like all the time, even though like the commission is kind of dog shit for my employees. Basically, yeah, they have like, we have like secret shoppers come through with like meta glasses, and literally I got fucking exposed by like the meta glasses guy like this last time, and I was not smiling for this like one car, and it was honestly I feel like it was because this guy was like glaring at me, and so I'm just like, whatever, bro, and just like fucking pushed him through. But they kind of just like had like a whole long conversation today in the meeting about like how hard is it to like smile, and like me and another like manager,
God, it's
like
one of those people, you know, it doesn't start without you smiling, bro.
Yeah, and me and one of the other managers like muted, and we were just like holy fuck, dude, like do they not realize that like almost like all the people in this country are like super fucking depressed and like don't make any fucking money and have like no future, and we all work like 50 hours a week, so like we have no life either. And
it's a powder keg, man. It's a powder keg. I keep trying to warn people. It's like, I'm like, right now it's like the economy is a game of musical chairs, where unironically the last person standing who doesn't have anything left is going to go full ham and go from wage rage to wage rampage. They're going to just go full Luigi. And the thing is there's not much we can do to stop it. Here's kind of the thing. Like, some people would accuse that of festive head posting, but it's just a fact of reality, is that when people are pushed into unsavory conditions, they do desperate things. You know, the whole warehouse guy lit that thing on fire is because, you know, he just said, fuck it, I give up. You know, there's no way of winning this rigged game. I'm just going to burn it all down. Okay? And so, like, my prediction is this. In 6 months' time, it's going to really kick off. It's going to get ugly. They're going to start cracking down on people who talk about class politics. It's just kind of a foreshadowing. I'm making my bet right now. I've been correct on most of the things I've talked about on my channel since January of 2025 when Trump got elected. I'm willing to make another bet here, is that it's going to really kick off in the next couple of months, is because gas prices are skyrocketing. Wait till that affects groceries and everything goes up, like, way more. So, I'm going to go ahead and let...
definitely.
go on.
Definitely. And like, honestly, I'll bring this up too. This is kind of a confession. I'm not saying that I'm morally good for this, but like, I like steal thousands and thousands of dollars of shit from the grocery store, like really expensive products, and I like fucking share them with my employees and like a bunch of other people and shit. And I just like, I don't know, it's kind of the only thing keeping me sane. Like, I feel like I'm fighting back against something at least.
That's the thing. It's like, you know, some people, like, I think I can't stop the unsavory things people do is because they've been pushed to a point of desperation. And I've tried my best to basically point out, and I've been mocked for it, for saying that people are going to have, I gotta call it the working class chimp out. It's like, the thing is, you're not going to stop it when it starts kicking off. It's because the fact is, when somebody has nothing left to lose, they do some very evil things. Yeah, the revenge against society is a real thing. China, they're way ahead of us in the respect this trend that you're talking about. I don't know, man. I'm gonna call bluff on that one. I don't really buy the propaganda about China. Like, every time I see people complaining about China is that, like, it's more or less a cope for what's going on domestically. That's not anything new. It's like all the propaganda about other countries when you just look back into ours and realize, wait a minute, we live like this, and they're busy making propaganda against other people's countries. I mean, I'm willing to be proven wrong. I don't think I will be, but feel free. I'll wait it out. I'm going nowhere. It's like Jesse Wells said, they join or die, or how is dying worse? Yeah. What else do you got to lose? I've seen other companies use AI with their store cameras to track how much their employees are smiling. All the power the AI has to improve efficiency, and that's what they're choosing to do with it. Because at one point or another, it's like the return to office bullshit. It's not about efficiency. It's not about producing anything. It's about control and beating the wages into submission. That's what it's about. It's not about making anybody's lives better. It's a symbol of control. And at one point or another, you know, and this is why I do want to start a workers' party at one point or another, is that you're going to have to play the same games back to essentially get back some of those things. Is because, let's be honest with you. I'm going to be honest with all of you in the chat right now. Okay, there is no reason why it's not just more logistically efficient to just basically put the vast majority of white-collar workers on remote work. Hell, even pay blue-collar workers more than white-collar workers. I, as a full-time engineer, would have no problem working for less with full-time remote. I don't have a problem with that. Honestly, blue-collar workers, since they have to actually go to the actual job site, maybe it should be paid more than white-collar workers. I wouldn't have a problem with that either. But they're not thinking in terms of efficiency. They're thinking in terms of power and then property values and how much they can, you know, engage in, like, endless profit and rent-seeking. So, you know, that's where it is. So, the best way to steal is placing hoppers underneath MC chest. You're talking about in Minecraft, fair enough. The schizo thing, but I feel like they're going to try and make the US midterm centered around social problems like ICI. That's exactly what the Democrats are going to do. That's why the algorithm, I came across one guy that was getting boosted by the algorithm, like, tremendously. He was like, you know, society has reached its breaking point. It's one of those titles and thumbnails that's going to do well on social media. It's going to do well on it. And then he also basically says, well, like, and by the time he halfway through the video, he's like, guys, we got to vote blue no matter who. You know, we got to get Trump out of office. You know, and the funny part is that you'll notice with the uni-party, and when it comes to their politics, they never talk about any positive policies which they wish to contribute to civilization. It's about how the other guy is bad, and we just need to get rid of them as soon as possible. Even though they said that about Trump, they said that about Biden. We got rid of Biden, we got Trump, and then gas prices are now $4.19 a gallon. The cost of living didn't go down. House prices didn't go down. Everything just got infinitely more, like, expensive, but at least it's not Biden. And so now the Democrats are doing the same thing with Trump, but we all know that if they just replace Trump, are prices really going to go down? Are things going to actually get more cheaper? No, it's not. As Alistair has pointed out in the past, even the Democrats are against class politics as proved by the liberal Biden administration. Here's the thing, okay? If the mainstream parties want us to vote for them, and this is the very simple rule, and they can cry about saying, oh, you know, third party is throwing your vote away. If they want to, you know, have our vote, just champion our policies. Take one of our policies, take one of our ideas, and start talking about the things that we care about, or we're not voting for you. It's that simple. You know, you have to actually make a positive contribution on why we support you, other than the fact is, besides saying that you're not the other person. I think Gavin Newsom will win. I think Gavin Newsom is essentially the Jeb Bush for the Democrat Party. Like, that's my hot take. I don't think Gavin Newsom's going to go very far, is because he's one of those kind of establishment politicians. It's like, you know, on the fringe enough that, like, you know, the uni-party is kind of putting forward, being like, this guy is going to be like the Trump of the Democrat Party. When, you know, honestly, it's like he's so unself-aware that it's not even funny. Is that he tried to, like, sell his own little wine bottle with a giant N on it. The comment section was fucking hilarious, to say the least. You know, it's like his competition to Trump's, you know, wine that had tea on it or whatever, right? It was so stupid, man. even the Dems start talking about affordability. Why would they even vote for them if that after everything did? They didn't make anything cheaper. It's like even the Inflation Reduction Act that Biden didn't make anything cheaper. Things still went up and got more expensive. I don't know. I think the Dems might be inept fools and put someone forward who is solely unqualified. Yeah, you keep voting, plebs. Yeah, no, I don't vote for anybody unless you start putting positive politics that I actually care about. He's going to get smacked by AOC. I wish more people understood the concept of the uni-party. It doesn't matter who you vote for in the national elections. You get Israel and the rest is theater. The problem is that, you know, eventually we have to get a loud enough and obnoxious enough voter block. And I wouldn't even call it a voter block, just a block of peoples, because the fact is like, you know, you have to make enough noise to essentially make yourself like a major faction where you have to be a pain in the ass for the establishment party, where they're forced to capitulate to what you want, or at least adopt some of it, or you're just going to eat their lunch. That's really the only way. Like, they're going to try and take over an org and neuter it, but the thing is, you have to have enough, you have to make enough noise to catch their attention and show that you're not going to get our block unless you do X, Y, and Z. Between the rise of MAGA and the far left becoming so unhinged, I'm convinced we need a third party now more than ever. And that's what I think is going to happen, Apollo. You're going to get kind of more like a nationalist-leaning, like economically left party coming up. And I know some people are going to type National Socialism in the chat. I couldn't care less. But the thing is, essentially, you're going to get a party that's going to want closed borders. They're going to want socially democratic policies at the very least, maybe workplace democracy. And so the thing is that's going to be a major contending force in politics for the next 30 years. You know, there's not really a way to go around it. So, you know, they're going to have to contend with those politics. Otherwise, they're just going to end up getting, you know, pulled out of office just out of spite because people don't like them. I think you're going to see more Luigis. You're going to see more warehouse peoples. And what's going to happen is that, like, this is going to really kick off for, like, a new set of political parties and third parties to come about to take advantage and tap into that resentment. That's my particular taste on that one. Imagine Heaven's Gate running the government. I wish I knew more about that. Is that like something from like an anime or something? I'm not sure about Heaven's Gate. National Socialism, yeah. You know, that, and the funny part is I don't see like another Hitler coming in the United States, even though like as far right people are nowadays. I think it's going to be like some level of nationalist politics, and it's not going to be like a Germany 2.0. That's my honest take. So I know I've been meaning to get to you next, Whale Goddess. Do you want to go ahead and, you know, chime in on the chat? I didn't mean to kind of overwrite you reading the chat. So welcome to the Wage Rage Radio.
Good. Hello. I'm a mail carrier, postal worker. I deliver mail every day. Yeah. Packages, mails, same area every day. I live in California. I can't afford shit. Like I live with my parents. I'm a postal worker.
I believe
with
it.
Like up to 50 hours of overtime. Can't afford shit. Make like, I think if I worked 40 hours a week, like no overtime, it would be like 60K a year. And yeah, my boss is a dickhead. Like, if they're always on our ass about times.
Gotta love it.
Yeah. I don't have any like feedback. I mean, I was just doing all the math.
Worst like place. You know, the funny part is California gets the rep of being communist, no hardcore like communist. But the funny part is like, unironically, they're like a social progressivist hellscape that hates the working class the most. The average house price is like $1 million. You know, the wages just don't even pay with like good luck. Even if I were to go work in California as a full-time engineer, maybe even a senior engineer, you know, even if I was making 300K, I probably still wouldn't be able to afford the average house. Like, how crazy is that? And there's a guy in my workplace currently that makes a good, he was from California or whatever, right? But he lived in California in the 70s when things were still fairly affordable. One of the biggest mistakes, what's going to make California go the way of Detroit, is the fact that like it's the mistake of treating housing as a speculative investment rather than just a place to live, right? If housing is so unaffordable, nobody's going to move there. I would not, you couldn't catch me. And that's besides like the Southern propaganda I grew up with about California, which turned out to be entirely true. You couldn't convince me to move to California today is because of how expensive it is. You would have to pay such a stupidly high salary to make it even worthwhile a trip, is because the thing is the vast majority of your money would be eaten up by rent and groceries just because of the cost of living crisis. I 100% feel it, man. It's probably terrible there, and I don't blame you for hating it. Like, you know, because like I can't think of a single job except for CEO jobs that would pay enough to actually where you could afford property and build wealth in California. It's just terrible.
Yeah, like I was like shopping rentals, like, oh, maybe I can move out this year, and it's like, oh, that's 100% of what I make. It's 100% of my take home pay to rent. Oh,
Jesus! And you work for 50 hours.
And I was. you know, yeah, and I was also doing the math on like mortgages. That's a good one, right?
Yeah. How much does the average studio cost in your area, if you don't mind me asking? If you're
well, I'm like close. I don't know if I should say it. Like 2,000 for like a cardboard box.
Jesus Christ! Oh my God! That's
I really can't find anything better.
Yeah, the working class revolution is going to start in California, and the funny part is all the people and the politicians and Democrats they call the communists are going to all of a sudden become anti-communist. They're going to be like, all right, there's too much You could even see this with the prosecutor in like Ontario, like San Bernardino, California. It's like they're like, we are a capitalist country. You know, any kind of working class violence is unacceptable. You know, we're a capitalist country, and what he means by capitalist in the back of his head is when taxpayer dollars and like money goes infinitely to the pedophile class. It doesn't mean like free market capitalism, which right-wing libertarians talk about because they live in their own little la-la land. They mean pedophile capitalism, where all the money goes to the Epstein class. But it is amazing. There's going to be a working class. Like, I would not be surprised. Like the Ontario, California guy. I say it all the time, but I bet you he's tried to have a conversation with his boss. He's like, boss, I can't afford these gas prices. I'm literally running negative. And he was like, well, that's too bad. We all have to make sacrifice. And he's like, you know what? I'm lighting this shit up. I'm just burning everything down. Let's get some green hats in the chat. Oh, being a rentoid isn't worth it. Get your own CDs or stocks. Yeah, that's kind of the thing. If you can invest in an index fund, like at least it's something that can appreciate with inflation as opposed to just being eaten up by it's like through inflation in your bank account as cash. That's my recommendation. That's why a lot of people in Gen Z are going towards
I just want to know, like, has anyone else noticed that like boomers have this cognitive disconnect? Like, they understand inflation, but only when it benefits them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because it benefits them. That's when they understand inflation is because that means their, like, 9 Airbnb rentals have, like, skyrocketed and their portfolio has, like, gotten, really high. So that's the only time they understand inflation is when it benefits them. It's like, when Nancy Pelosi says she's free market capitalism, but she's not, free and open, like, market capitalism when if workers decide to strike against, like, a railroad company. It's really like, in their mind, in the mind of our ruling class, capitalism means to them, if it benefits me. Like, I've tried to tell libertarians that for ages, is because I was a right-wing libertarian when Occupy Wall Street was a thing. I was actually anti-communist. I was anti-socialist. I was actually a big Peter Schiff fan. And I was like, you know what? These guys, I understand where they're coming from. A lot of people lost their homes, but this isn't true capitalism. This is crony capitalism. Which it's not wrong, because like the capitalism we have is not the right-wing libertarian envisionment of like what capitalism is, where you have free and competitive like markets. You have a self-serving parasitic class that's taking infinite government welfare, but then will literally nickel and dime when it comes to welfare for anybody else. So social democratic policies for anybody else is just we got to get rid of that. But the subsidies that go to bailing out big companies because they're too big to fail, that's okay. And so the thing is, this class believes that is capitalism. When it benefits, the capitalist class, that is capitalism. Which, it's going to backfire on the capitalist classes, because the fact is, if we're going to go down to just class lines, I'm sorry, but, if we're going to go to where things are based on class lines, why not just become a Marxist at that point? Why not just become a communist? Be like, you know what? I'm going to start supporting politics that benefit the working class as a class, not out of some, misguided notion of benevolent charity to help out the working class, but just because I just so happen to be a worker and it just benefits me, right? Because if we're going to play what benefits me games of like, I'm going to use politics to benefit my side of the aisle, right? That's just communism. It's just like, okay, you know what? We're going to create a state called the proletarian state, and it's going to benefit the working class if we're going to play that game. Socialism is the means of production are owned by the society as a whole. Capitalism with the referee is a social democracy. The funny part about like the ideals of communism or socialism, and most people, including my own chat, probably doesn't even give or care about it. I don't really care about the ideals of communism, but at the end of the day, right, we have to admit that when it comes to free market competition, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's not like the biggest enemy of right-wing libertarians has always been the capitalist class. And so unless you nip in the bud like capitalist class from like actually manipulating the government, you're not going to have that efficient free market competition that people talk about. Like The modern day state of China is just a perfect example of that. Any thoughts about Mamdani's job as mayor so far? He seemed to run as a social democrat, but he just seems to be a generic budget hot Democrat. See, this is kind of the thing with, you know, people who like AOC, when they get into political power, and any kind of like other, you know, Democrat politician, you know, like the Squad or whatever, right? Is that once they get an ounce of political power, they're just going to essentially like turn into milquetoast dipshits. Okay, I don't know if anybody watches Jimmy Dore, but I remember when like AOC had the chance during the COVID pandemic to go for Medicare for all and have it proposed to the House, but she didn't want to like offend Nancy Pelosi, which, you know, ended up making her look bad anyways. The thing about it is that when you have people elected into these roles, they just end up, you know, this is what I was talking about in my previous stream. Like, you know, if you built yourself a populist base, okay, you've got yourself a base that, you know what ideas that you were able to appeal to random people before, and you were able to build a base off of your ideas. You know, there's a good chance the so-called elites did not care about your ideas in the first place, right? And so at one point or another, you get a large enough base, and you're able to contend with the powers that be, to propose your policies or carry forth what ideas you want to carry forth, right? And so you come to a point, every politician, AOC, Mamdani, you know, they get a point where they either have to, you know, enact the policies that benefit their base, or they basically capitulate to the existing establishment for God knows whatever reason. Maybe it's like Trump and they got a dossier on him, right? And I don't understand why these types of people just don't carry forth to like keep their base. I don't understand. Yeah, force the vote live stream. Yeah, it was Jimmy Dore that tried to do force the vote, and then AOC completely cucked out of it, just like Bernie Sanders. It's like, whatever happens, you know, they just completely sell out their base, you know, to a group of people who never gave a shit about any of our ideas in the first place, and now are demanding you capitulate to their side of the aisle, even though they literally ignored you when you were nobody. So I don't understand how these people do it. But the thing is, Mamdani, it didn't surprise me that happened, is because, like, we already had Bernie Sanders do that. We had AOC when it came to force the vote. So it doesn't surprise me that Mamdani did it either. So it's not something that's really surprised me. But, you know, here's the position that I have when it comes to these, you know, dime a dozen, like, you know, Democrat Party, electees that essentially get into political power, but they go on like these rough, like tough politics, is that I don't have high expectations on them unless if they actually deliver. That's all it is. You know, if you deliver what we talk about, I'll support you. But if you don't, okay, I'm just going to ignore you. So, you know, if Mamdani doesn't do it, it doesn't like disappoint me or even like surprise me that he cucked out. Because like that's kind of thing. A lot of these people just kind of cuck out. Workers protested against Mamdani being inefficient. All the liberal opportunities came out against the workers. That's all too common because there is a common stereotype when it comes to the socialist side of the aisle, the communist side of the aisle. And you can even see this in media. Is that, you know, you look at like how the Nazis are portrayed, is they're all portrayed as like these hyper efficient, like eternally rational beings of just pure machines of pure efficiency. And then you look at like a TV show like Chernobyl, and, you know, the Communist Party is just this party of ideological dipshits that are always just trying to like essentially peek over socialized midwifery. And there's a kernel of truth with like how the mainstream left is. But the thing is that, you know, the inefficiency thing can be addressed if you just take more sensible politics, like I said in my last video. Socialism and communist depend on cultures. Yeah, that's going to be, you know, the natural state of things. Like, that's why you have, like, China with socialism with Chinese characteristics. It's going to look different from country to country, which is okay. You know, that's fine with me. If there was ever socialism or communism in the West, like, Western communism is just going to look categorically different. China did capitalism the best way, but it will never be enough. Even today, workers are constantly revolt against China. And, you know, we are only going to know about that as time goes on. Like, some things you can't hide. So if there's cracks in the Chinese system, you know, so be it. I have my doubts because the fact is I just look at, like, a lot of the technological developments going on in China. I'm impressed by it, and it looks like they're trying to orient technological development to better their civilization. Like, for instance, when it came to, like, people and companies firing workers over AI, you know, a Chinese court quite literally just ruled that that's illegal. You know, you can't just fire somebody for, you know, supposed like AI nonsense. Most of those political types don't want to be in power, just want to be in power because they don't want to work a regular job. That is so common. Do you know how many like streamers, like if you go watch my old stream with like food shops back in the day, you know, a lot of these people, it's like, I never understood how food shops, but you know, there's just some people that just want to do it is because they don't want to work a full-time job. But the funny part is she streamed like 8 hours a day, and I looked at her as like, isn't that already a full-time job? And it probably doesn't pay as much as a full-time job. But then again, everybody's getting poorer, so I can understand why people would quite literally, you know, prefer to be a media figure over like having a full-time job. That's just how bad the cost of living crisis is. It's kind of sad, really.
Hey, so just kind of like
Texan.
Well, I want to comment on the last you mentioned the whole like full-time job thing, but also like Jesus Christ, man, like that is genuinely impressive. The will to monologue without breathing for 30 minutes. Like I wish I could do that.
It's something I just got good at, is because like when I'm recording my videos, that's kind of why I do videos and live streams, because it just gives me a chance to speak publicly and practice public speaking. If you want to learn how to do public speaking, if anybody's interested in, you're kind of looking at that, I do recommend make a YouTube channel. Just open up a microphone. If you watch one of my older videos, I'll tell you straight up, I just didn't understand how people could monologue into a microphone endlessly, right? Gamma, I don't know if he's in the chat, he's not in the chat, but I used to talk to him, I was like, I don't understand how people can just monologue into a microphone endlessly, and I'm one of those people too. Goated lung capacity. But the thing is, it's a learned thing. The more you do it, the better you get at it. There's actually an old video, and I might put it in the chat later, where I go on a rant talking about how I don't understand how people can talk into a microphone, for an hour at a time. And funny enough, I was referencing food shops as well, is because it's like, some people are just cut out, but I think it's a trained skill. The more you do it, the better you get at it. So, don't let that discourage you. What you see is kind of natural for me. It's just because I've gotten used to it to some degree. Go on.
Yeah, no, so the cool thing about, so like the reason I really clung to my welding thing was, I wasn't really making good money. I was just barely making as much as a Walmart employee on average, but it's like, but I'm only working like 4 or 5 days a month, and I'm making $2,500 a month. It's like, sometimes the job, it sucks. You get burned. You get them like that time I got slapped in the face with an axle because it fell. It fell, but thankfully my head wasn't directly under it, so it just knocked me in the jaw a little bit. It was fine. You feel tomorrow. You feel it tomorrow. It's all swollen, but it's whatever, right? It comes with the job.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I think people there's been a resurgence of and I think this is like a big thing that the millennials are kind of at war with the boomers over, because the boomers just can't, they don't understand. They don't value it. But it's like the millennials, like, we value our free time. We don't want to spend our entire lives at a job, whether we hate it or not. We want to do like other shit, like more,
exactly.
We want to have life.
Yeah, I said in the last stream that, if you gave universal basic income, or you allowed people to have unlimited free time, like, there's a stereotype that everybody would just be like a lazy degenerate that would smoke infinite pot or some nonsense, right? And even if there was a subset of the population that was like that, I would say that the people who use their free time to make actually genuinely good contributions to humanity, that start startups, I wouldn't say that sounds so cringy or whatever. That sounds so right-wing libertarian, and having a left-wing audience would probably just mock about that. But the thing is that I've seen people who make really awesome things with their free time. They just go full in autist, and they make some really cool things. And the thing is, I think the contributions by those people would outweigh whatever, the dregs of society would do to society. The pot smoke. See, the thing about the pot smoking dweebs that just kind of sit in the corner just getting high all day, it's like they're not harming anybody if they just stay in their own corner, right? If you're one of those ambitious people, you like to build things. Like, I'm a tinkerer. Like, if I had unlimited free time, I would be tinkering around with things. I'd probably be buying cryo coolers. I would love to get a metal 3D printer, but that thing costs as much as a house, man. But the thing is, there's always going to be a subset of the population that is going to engage in things that, they're going to create something that's going to be genuinely beneficial for humanity. And I think that would outweigh the people who are just being pot-smoking dweebs in a corner. If they're not bothering anybody, I don't have a problem that they exist. Because there's going to be a set of people who are going to go above and beyond, create some really cool things, and I think that outweighs whatever they do. That's my 2 cents. So, like, trying to drain everybody's free time is just a complete waste of time. Let people have free time is because I see it as this. You give everybody like a baseline where they work honestly, they can have a decent standard of living, but if they want to go above and beyond, which there will always be a group of people that will do that, allow them to go above and beyond, give them the free time to actually pursue their passions. So, I agree, 100%. But, we got this kind of mentality from a ruling class that wants to take away as much as possible. Hey, I smoke pot, lots of pot, and I put a power drill on that bike, and I hit it about 30. That's totally good, man. Everybody has their own path in life. And if what you're doing in your life is okay and it makes you happy, that's all that really matters, man. There's no wrong answers as long as you're not harming other people. There's no wrong answers on how you want to live your life, man. I agree, Alistair.
Oh, by the way, just a quick update on my. Yeah, sorry. Just by the way, a quick update on my looks maxing thing. So I actually just today got me a Ford F-350. Now it doesn't run yet. It needs to have a. Yeah. So I'm about to become a hashtag real welder. I'm appeasing the boomers with my real welder mobile.
Everybody with that F-350, man. You're gonna truck log everybody.
Yeah, because I was over here rolling around as it is described, the rape van. So it's the not real welder mobile.
Man, dude, there's so much garbage. It's in every field, even in engineering.
well, here's the thing, right? It's like I'm a white dude, so I'm not allowed to be poor. Like a Mexican can drive the van and be a real businessman. That's fine. But if I drive the van, it's a rape van.
Yeah. The things that people fucking say and do. What's up, Matt88? Welcome to the stream. Welcome to Wage Rage Radio. How you doing?
Hey, but yeah, I got to replace the fuel pump and probably rerun some lines and, a little paint job. I'm going to upgrade the headlights, maybe put a ranch hand on it. I'm going to get it looking all sparkly and shit for the boomers. And you best fucking believe that I'm going to mark up the hell on my prices I hate these people.
Get a couple of bucks, man. Absolutely. It's some retiree boomer that's going to buy that at full price. That's funny.
Oh, you want me to weld? Well, if I didn't have to spend a year waging to appease your bullshit, I would have done it for 200, but now it's 2,000.
Yeah. What's up, Matt88? How you doing?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, man.
I started listening to your stuff a while back, and I really, you've changed my mind on a lot of stuff, but something I've been wondering is, how come we don't have a national vision for the country for what direction we should be moving towards?
That is something. Here's going to be the interesting thing is because we're all, you could call it Kali Yuga, we could call it a rut or whatever, right? The thing is that, there needs to be more positive visions. I have my own things. I've actually got some content and videos coming out that I want to release that kind of change the pace a little bit, is because the fact is one thing to tap into resentment, but it's also another thing to bring forth a positive vision on to bring change so people don't get burnt out with the rage and just kind of get because that's kind of thing that'll happen. The thing is that it's very easy to be angry at something. It's very easy to want to burn something down because you don't like it. It takes a different kind of mindset to also understand the fact is, yeah, we as a generation got a raw deal, but it also comes with a different mind to understand that, okay, you know what, eventually at one point or another, you do need to have a better national vision to create a better society, to kind of overcome what is going on to us and recognize that whatever contributions you make are for future generations and not us individually. So, and it's just because the fact is people find it easier to just simply want to burn down the system as opposed to create a new one. And the unfortunate part about it is that, when it comes to most people, it's that's just the way it is. There's going to be a couple of visionaries. There's going to be a competition between visions on what people think is the best way to take things in the long run. It'll come out, but, maybe it's just lackluster, but that's my honest opinion.
Well, I have a theory. I don't think the boomers in power, right? Whether it's the CEOs, the politicians, whatever, I don't think they can give us a national vision, because how can they look to the future when they don't have a future? Any day they could drop off, right? Because once you're in your 80s, your 90s, whatever, I mean, any breath could be your last. You don't have tomorrow. So how are you going to plan for tomorrow? So that's why all of their policies is all about comfort for them at our expense. And I'm sitting here saying, well, our future is being robbed from us. The whole thing is falling apart. I listen to these jackasses like Matt Walsh, who will sit there and criticize young people. Why are you so selfish? Why won't you have kids? And I'm like, well, they can't buy a house, and if they can't get a house, they're not going to get married, because where are they going to live? So a lot of insult to injury to it. Well, there's a lot of young folks who live in cars, because they're homeless college students. So are they going to raise kids in a car? So Matt Walsh, you're sitting here saying that poor people throughout history have had, kids. Why aren't they doing that now? Because nobody wants to raise kids in a car. So but why don't you talk about, instead of sitting there, shitting on young people, why don't you come up with a better vision for America to say, hey, this is what we're working towards. We're working towards this thing. And I don't see that. So I see all these companies doing all this shit. You got Bill Gates wanting to do whatever shit he's doing. You got Palantir. You got all these different companies. And I don't see anyone in the government saying, hey, this is what America's going to be about. I feel like if you go back to the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, and you ask a random American, what is America about? They'll tell you this is what we're working towards. I don't see that
the funny
now.
part is boomers don't have a positive national vision is because they're living in the dream of their parents. The people who went through the Great Depression, World War I, the Spanish flu, World War II, like they're living in the future built by that generation. So of course they don't have a positive vision. They're living in the future built by another generation and they're tearing it apart. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Lack of transparency. Absolutely.
Anything we do is going to be for the benefit of future generations, and it sucks, I know, but the thing is it is what it is. Like, you can either the way that I see it is like, it's one thing to be angry, and it's totally like you have every right to be angry, but at the same time it's like you also got to recognize that we also have the most amount of political leverage. Young men as a block is a very dangerous block that everybody's trying to fight for right now. Whether it be Matt Walsh or whether it be the Democrats doing those stupid little gay masculinity LARP or performative masculinity videos, right? They're all trying to get a slice of the block, but all they have to do is just make it where the average person, including myself, is like a young 30-year-old guy who has to go to work every week, make it where the average house is affordable and they'll win by a landslide, but they don't do that. They will do anything and talk about performative masculinity all day, but they won't address the cost of living crisis worth a damn. It's like even Right-Wing Coalition had to call out, these various other content creators, on this nonsense. It's kind of performative garbage. I don't know, it seems fairly common to want cheap housing, cheap utilities, and a stable outlook instead of literally just being replaced by AI. The funny part, Vendriska, is I don't even have a problem with AI, but the thing is companies are not using it to make things cheaper. They're just literally trying to go into, like, price gouging. Like, so it seems just to be an outcome of diversity within the liberal system. I'm not talking about race. There's age, income, skill, intellectual, religious, and so on. Liberalism seems to use diversity. Yeah. I think they're just taking advantage of it. I've always liked the idea of isolationism. You know what? That's been my ideology for the longest time. Because the thing is I even said in my, latest, most popular videos, not even, latest, but, the thing is, it's like, I'm like Evil Morty. Like, my evil plan's just to be left the fuck alone and just check out a society. That's why I'm more of an American isolationist. And on an optimistic timeline, we turn things around before Gen Alpha needs to lift a finger. I think that's going to be the case. I think millennials and Gen Z are just going to have to basically take a stand, say, you know what, we're going to start, reforming the system. We're going to do things our way. We don't care if you're going to bitch, cry, and scream about it. These things are getting changed. And so hopefully, future generations, the kids of millennials, don't have to go through what we're going through. I agree with this. Isolation is a more realistic approach in the age of diversity of everything. Well, that's kind of the thing. If we go to American isolationism, you don't really have to... Here's the problem with America being the center of the world. This is why I don't really like the ideas. Because if you ever wonder why they import infinite, migrants in the United States, is because the fact is it's supposed to be the center of the world. Liberalism is supposed to be the default ideology. And so, that means that we share our culture with everybody else. What's wrong with just wanting to check out of, the world stage and just kind of let the world go on? That's been my mentality for the longest time. The argument I hear against isolation is stuff like that. TVs will be more expensive, but never care. The funny part is they always say that garbage. They say that crap that if we go isolationist, TVs will be more expensive. But the funny part is we've already had, the complete outsourcing of all their manufacturing and industry to China. And now they're offshoring tech and engineering to India. But somehow fucking whatever reason, things are not getting cheaper. But they are pocketing the difference. They're 100% pocketing the difference. See, what they meant by cheaper, what the capitalist class meant by cheaper is they meant cheaper for them, not everybody else. Everybody else has to pay the difference. Also, I would like to say at the time horizon for young men to be dangerous is limited. If AI companies and Palantir get their way, our leverage will slip. It's more important than ever to help in the future. Well, yeah, I agree, but here's kind of thing. I think people are kind of overestimating the tools and what they have, to actually... use against people. You look at the meta stuff. Okay, they caught a bunch of people, having sex. They were spying on young couples or some shit like that. It's okay, what are you going to use with that information? Blackmail people to some degree? Again, it's it's not going to look good on you if you're just, blackmailing everybody, because you can go public with that. So, an isolated communist America will simply fail because it'll recreate capitalist social relations. I don't know about that one. The thing is you look at most communist countries or whatever, right? They don't necessarily become isolationist entirely. They still engage in some trade, but the fact is they still keep their own society. So I don't know about that. If you're trying to say do global revolution, I don't really think the United States should have an affair in spreading ideas, across the world. Is because we've already done that with liberalism. Why would I care that communism does the same thing? it'd be better for the world if we went isolationist. I would agree. Europe and the Middle East would no longer have to be beholden to the United States. I agree, absolutely. I don't really care for the United States to be the center of the world. Like one guy who's a nationalist pointed out pretty well. He said, like, why is it that American workers have to prove their worth and compete on a world stage for jobs in their own country? I've never understood that. It's like, that's just a nonsense thing. Like, you know, you can look back at the 1970s and 80s and people had a decent enough standard of living and they didn't need to compete on the world stage for jobs and they still had it okay. So if all this AI and surveillance stuff succeeds, then who will actually be looking for the spy cameras if everyone's starving? See, the funny part is that, like, this whole spy surveillance state apparatus requires operators to maintain it on their behalf. And so the thing is that, you know, we already know these people don't pay people enough to live. Let's just be real here. So the fact is that, like, eventually it's come to a point, even members of the bourgeois state are just going to turn a blind eye to whatever people are doing, is because they just don't get paid enough to give a fuck. Like, that's just the fact of life. I mean, technically, flat-screen TVs are cheaper if you adjust for inflation, but everything else that matters is unaffordable. No, I agree. Like, the one of the fucked up things is that, like, all the things that we don't need have become incredibly affordable. All the things you need to live have become incredibly unaffordable. Housing, healthcare. I mean, I just started off this stream talking about, like, a $160 copay just to get visited at the doctor's office. But, you know, all the things that you need to actually live have gotten more expensive, and it sucks. That's the problem. But at the same time, those products being cheaper don't do anything for the American worker outside an act of distractionism and cope. You know, the funny part is with, like, the RAM crisis going on and them jacking up RAM prices on everything, is that might actually be the straw that breaks the camel's back, is because there's no more bread and circuses anymore. Like, the bread and circuses are going bye-bye. I really hope that happens, because I'm not going Kyle Reese against AI. I'm not even anti-AI. I don't have a problem with AI. I think AI is going to do a couple of good things, but the thing is, I think people are just overestimating on what it actually is going to do. So, you know. What's up, Chive? How you doing, man?
Good, good. I was gonna say the bread and circuses are very much alive and well. It's just that we've been pretty much enslaved by social media and dopamine addictions of various kinds. That's the new bread and circuses.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can believe that. Yeah, I don't know. Like, people used to say Marvel and Funko Pops was gonna basically be our bread and circuses, and that worked for a while. But it's like it's not keeping the normies pacified much anymore. So, I don't know.
There's a lot. That's the beauty of it. Like, there's so many different distractions that we could take, but as the material reality worsens for so many people, those distractions don't really work anymore, especially when you don't have food to eat.
It isn't. No, that's why I'm starting Wage Rage Radios, just so, you know, people can chat. Is because the fact is, I'm pretty sure everybody has a story of an obnoxious fucking boss that basically, you know, treats them like trash and underpays them. Like I said, I had to get in, like, a little bit of a chat with my, I'll let you on the stage. You haven't spoken before. Welcome to the stage if you want to chat. But let me go ahead and make this point real quick. Is that the fact is, like, they're not willing to compromise on anything. They're just passing infinite costs to the working class, and eventually people are just going to snap. What's up, King of Otsland? How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing great. Now, I'm coming from more of like a third positionist perspective. But
That's
one
fine.
thing I'll say is that when you look at this extremely complex global supply chain, I really don't see how this system is going to work in a multipolar world when you have all these little straits like, you know, Hormuz, but there's like 5 or 6 other major ones in the world. And you have all these little nodes where you have extremely specialized industries, you know, like South Korea and Taiwan, where the semiconductors are made. So I really don't see how the global capitalist trading system is going to be sustainable in the long run. When you see like this little war basically that hasn't even killed that many people in the grand scheme of things, like compared to Russia, Ukraine, or even the Iraq war. But just this little disruption is already putting so much strain on the global trading system that, you know, you could possibly have 50 to 100 million people die of famine within the next few months. So
it's going to be interesting, is because, you know, like I don't understand either, because like there's so much strain and like people are panicking. I'm just assuming it's rent seeking to a large degree. So like the oil shale, you know, companies and the United States domestically are having to compensate for whatever, like, oil can't be sold outside of the Strait of Hormuz or whatever. And the interesting thing is like they have the opportunity to expand capital to increase oil production, but they just simply don't, is because they don't want to get burned by low prices again. It's like quite literally they're restricting the supply is because they want to be able to like turn a profit, extra profit or whatever, you know. So
yeah, I mean, the rent-seeking behavior is just absolutely insane. I mean, you have like little industries that really make up a small percentage of the economy, and if you go, oh my god.
Yeah. Like I said, there's two ways, there are actually three ways things are going to go. Okay, so like you get a revolutionary party that takes power in the United States and they start reforming things to actually do like an Augustus Caesar like, you know, situation where you have like decent benefits like towards like the American population. Like that's the best case scenario. You have somebody that's able to actually take power and like change things for the better and does a ton of reforms that actually like make people's lives better. B, you have a civil war, but it ends up being in some kind of half-assed balkanization. You get some Mad Max scenario. That's another bad scenario. Or the worst part is we just spend over the next 200 years turning into a borderline litigious slave state and just kind of go the way of the Romans, where, you know, people are just being, you know, by law bound to their jobs, and if they leave, they get thrown in jail. Right? That's the real outcomes that I see the United States going along. You know, and I don't really see any in-betweens either, is because, you know, the way the rest of the world is going to perceive the United States doesn't need to be conquered. They're not going to attack us. China's not going to invade the United States. Why would they? Is because currently the United States is on a path of self-destruction, and so all the world has to do is quite literally ignore the United States, and that seems to be most of the policy of Iran anyways. It's like, okay, cockblock, you know, United States at the Strait of Hormuz, and just largely ignore them. That's it. And so, yeah, Brazilification, if you want to call it, like Demo said in the chat. Agenda 2030. Globalism is ending, and we are supposedly moving towards regionalism. I think Americas, Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. You know, I don't even have a problem with that. If you want to call it regionalism, where the United States has its own hemisphere, I wouldn't even necessarily be opposed to, where, like, you know, because, like, you know, China's going to exert its influence, you know, in its section of the world. Europe's probably going to go more independent from the United States anyways. And that's probably, like, a foreseeable future. If the United States can stabilize itself, is because right now there's really no reason to stay in the United States. Like, everybody's having a reason just to, like, quite literally move. There's even people are immigrating from the United States at rapid rates, either to Europe or Asia, you know. And so, you know, the United States is just bleeding people, is because there's not really any benefits here. Housing's expensive, and you don't even have the social democratic benefits that you see in many European countries. So everything's expensive and has no benefits here. They're going to bring manufacturing back, put pressure on foreign industries. Here's the thing. I've said this forever. One of my videos that popped off originally talking about the reindustrialization of America, and my point still stands as it did then, is that if you want to reindustrialize America and you want to actually produce things, you have to make American industry competitive. And this is the uncomfortable question that nobody wants to admit, is because American labor isn't competitive. You know, as of right now, they just passed a bill into the House to ban, you know, the importation of Chinese vehicles into the United States. Why? Why are American vehicles not competing against Chinese vehicles and being better? And it goes down to a very systematic issue, because on paper, the dollar has a tremendous amount of value compared against other countries because we are the world reserve currency. On top of that, because people need to have higher incomes just to afford housing in the United States, but we've decided to inflate property values so much just to benefit the boomer class along with BlackRock, is that, you know, it is de facto necessary that you have to pay people $15 an hour just to exist in this country. And so on paper, you know, when it comes to business logistics on what they have to labor payroll people, American labor is just not competitive. And so unless if you quite literally do a Maoist land redistribution and pop the property bubble, American labor will always be uncompetitive, and you will never reindustrialize the United States. No American products are going to be very competitive until you address this singular issue. And I don't see really any other way other than quite literally just making housing affordable for the average person. I wouldn't have a problem nominally working for less money. If housing was $100K to afford the average house, I wouldn't mind taking a $30K job, is because I'd still be able to afford the vast majority of things that I need. But the thing is that they're not going to do that. Now you need a $150K salary to afford the average house in the United States. And unfortunately, it's like you can say just rent instead of buy, but the thing is most people or landowners that are renting things out are going to charge, you know, pretty much similar to a mortgage anyways. Cheap houses that are mass produced, for starters. Yeah, that would be a starter. That's one way you could, you know, burst the property bubble, but that's going to be the biggest hurdle for the United States to ever reindustrialize. It's just a fact of reality. You know, people are free to accept what I'm saying here, or they can, you know, tell me I'm wrong. And like I said, it's a free country, sort of, not really, whatever. But the thing is people are entitled to believe what they want to believe. It's funny how liberals say America pay is just supply and demand due to a lot of American workers, but then cry for more immigrants. You know, I've said this for a while now on this channel, is they don't like fair and free competition between like companies like Ford, and so they literally block Chinese vehicles from coming in the United States, but then they hire infinite H-1B visas to undercut domestic American labor. It's amazing how they believe in America first for the capitalist, just not for the worker. The tough part about popping the housing bubble is that we get a bad recession, but that maybe is bad. See, here's the thing. Right now, if you don't pop that bubble, and I'm saying this as somebody who owns a house who would lose significantly out on this because the fact is I'm a first-time home buyer, me and my wife are. It's just a recognition of reality that, you know, housing right now as a speculative investment is quite literally a giant pyramid scheme where the person who buys in last is paying the most. And unfortunately, people need salaries to keep up with that. But the thing is, these are salaries that companies don't want to pay, and so they import more people to pay less. The vehicle issue has a lot to do with a few government regulations pushing the American vehicle manufacturing in a specific direction for those vehicles, for those manufacturers of profit. Chicken tax and emissions. Okay, you know, I can't disagree with you on that one, but, you know, the main problem still kind of stands, is that, you know, you need to find a way to make American labor competitive. Otherwise, the fact is it's just not going to be possible to manufacture here. You know, and it goes down to housing and, you know, all the things that became unaffordable in the United States. So, you know, my rule of thumb is this. It doesn't matter what you nominally make. If your income, I always do, this is my metric. I don't use real GDP. I don't use nominal GDP. Now, I'll use these terms to illustrate a point, but I don't think the term real GDP as a reference point is a legitimate way to actually measure, like, actual inflation. The way I measure when it comes to economic output, and there's obviously going to be a couple of midwits that are going to comment in my comment section saying that's already accounted for, which it's not, and I'll explain later, is that the way I measure how somebody's quality of life is going, are you working harder for less or working less for more? Because if you're working more for less, that means you're getting less efficient, meaning you're working harder for something that has less output, right? But if you're working less for more, I would say, you know, things are getting easier. That's my metric. Now, if you were to ask yourself right now, if you're working less for more or more for less, I would say you're going to say working more for less is because I even can talk with Deconstructing Narcissism. He works a warehouse job, and it doesn't even afford him a place to live on his own, despite the fact that when it was boomer times, you know, a factory warehouse job could afford you a house and a car and be able to raise a family. Yet he has 3 roommates in his own generation. So that's an indication that somebody is working more for less. And so I consider that to be a far better and superior metric of measuring quality of life as opposed to whatever, you know, mainstream economist metrics really are. George Carlin said that we have privileges and not rights, and I agree with that. It's true. In the way that something's got to give, something's got to break. That's kind of the thing. Something is going to break. It's just, you know, it's just a game of class interests. It's just diametrically opposed material interests. That's all it is. You know, the younger generations are not enfranchised in the system, so it's in their incentive interest to burn it down and create a system that benefits them. It's just a fact of life. Our fate was sealed when Jay Powell printed trillions of dollars in 2019. Our children's fate was sealed when Powell returned and printed even more trillions. The dollar must devalue or done for. Yeah, that's true. The thing is, when they printed all that money, they gave a bunch of liquidity to companies, boomers, through cheap credit, and now we're dealing with the consequences of that. The thing is that when you print up a ton of money, it benefits the asset holder class. That's just a fact of reality, and so everybody else got screwed. You know, the funny part is people talked about inflation. This is one of the things I always hated the left about for like the last 6 years, is that, you know, when it came to inflation, you know, the average right-wing libertarian could understand that it's like, you know, essentially taxation indirectly. But the thing is, inflation is essentially wage theft indirectly, is because notice how the price of everything is getting more expensive except for the price of labor. You know, notice how when you talk to your boss, you have to justify why you deserve a pay raise because you have to work harder. But did any of these capitalists, when they raised the prices on eggs with gasoline, did they ever justify their costs? Did they work harder? Did they make a more quality product for justifying why they raised the prices on any of their things? No. So, you know, they could raise their prices ad infinitum and nobody's going to question them on whether or not they're making a more quality product. So, you know, I don't see why it's anything wrong with saying that, you know, pay should match inflation. It's interesting how universal these problems are. It's like that even in Canada. Yeah, that's kind of the thing. You know, you basically have an elite wealthy class that are essentially organizing the system to exclusively benefit themselves at the expense of the vast majority of society. You know, I wouldn't say this is new. You could even go back to, you know, ancient Rome to kind of see senators doing the exact same thing. You know, it's just the rot of the system that eventually a revolution is going to have to tear down and start a new system. You know, there's no such thing as a perfect system. Not to be a doomer, one thing I'm worried about is that if things do break, how hard will they break? I think, I'm going to be honest with you, if you look at history when it comes to any revolution in the Anglosphere, is that when it does happen, it gets very ugly. That's just the fact of it. You know, you can look at the English Civil War. It got pretty ugly as well. So, you know, when it breaks, it's going to break. And the thing is like right now we're at the tail end of an era where you had relative peace and stability that is quickly dissipating and evaporating, where you're just having raw material interest at play that are going to dictate what people are going to do in society. Yeah,
and also I think like the animosity is building. Like, you know, I can speak on everybody else, but I have a list of people who I remembered fucking me over, and you know, if the cops ever stop being a thing, then your boy's gonna make a few trips.
We get it, man. But yeah.
I don't want to get your. I don't know if you're live or not, but I don't want to get.
Oh, I'm live.
Down
I get where you're going at, man. Get organized and read theory.
Yeah.
Well. Okay. I agree with that. Like, unironically, I do actually, like I said, I do intend on putting out some videos on economic planning, is because now is the time to talk about positive visions on actually how to change societies, because we can talk about rent-seeking classes all days, but the thing is, we need to talk about solutions to the rent-seeking classes. That's what we need to start talking about. Is like, okay, say we were to start a workers' party, and we were starting to campaign into like different local municipalities to build political power. We were going to organize labor strikers, right? You know, we were going to organize unions. Like, you know, what are the common tactics that they're going to use to basically employ and go after people? And I said it previously and earlier on the stream, is that, you know, like I was reading earlier, the Mohawk Valley procedure of union busting, and it is a combination of engaging in legal intimidation using the police and private armies to intimidate union strikers, and on top of that, also smear campaigns. And the smear campaigns are an interesting one, is because the fact is while they've kind of abandoned the more Pinkerton style union busting, they've gone towards more of an HR, like, you know, lawfare type of union busting, where they just basically rewrite the rules of civilization to benefit one side of the aisle in a disingenuous way. And so if we're going to organize labor unions in the United States, go on.
So speaking of like a one-sided like lawyer, it's kind of hard to say.
I'm gonna call them
but
Pinkertons.
Do you know
the Winkertons?
Well, do you know the incentive, like do you know the incentive that I'm not really sure how to fucking word it. I'll go ahead and say it. So basically, have a vested interest in the Indian influx, because basically the government, you know, they get like basically free housing, but the government pays for it. And so the incentive for the landlord to do is that the landlord can basically set whatever price they want, because it's basically, you know, it's an open check. You just kind of write whatever fucking that you want for it. It's basically free, infinite money.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, I haven't heard of that one. We do this, the abolition of private property. Pinkertons are the biggest threat to the U.S. They are psyoping the world with SOP. See, the funny part is their deception against the working class just got a lot more subtle on how they gaslight the working class. Like, I posted in my community post section. It's like, one guy was basically going on a rant saying, like, Alistair, you're a white-collar worker, you're an engineer, you're not working class. Never mind the fact that my salary doesn't afford the average house. Or the fact that, like, you know, it comes to the health plans, they don't even give full health plans anymore. They just do high deductible health plans where you pay a huge ass copay. You know, none of that stuff matters. But, you know, they can basically superficially gaslight of who's working class and who's not working class. So that's kind of the more deceptive tactics that they use. But to organize the working class in today, like I said earlier, it's like you need to be able to organize people based on like a coalition of interests. You need to basically have like some kind of concrete hard goals that you want to achieve that are, you know, within reason that you can achieve, and you can like kind of leverage your weight or your clout to actually achieve in the first place. So when it comes to organizing, you know, we all know that boomers try to finger wag when it comes to getting their way. You can't use that today. Like, the people that you're dealing with have, like, you know, insane self-interest. They don't really care. You have to be able to, like, quite literally grab them by the neck and then force them into negotiation. You really have to force your way when it comes to these people. Dang guys, cutting out hard. We do this with the abolition of private property, the capitalistic social relations. Yeah, that's one way you could do that. The first thing is just to get rid of applying to liberalism to work. Absolutely. Dude, you know, unironically, it's like if everybody's going to go assuming we're post-digital ID, okay? What's stopping any of us from just getting together and hanging out and organizing and just talking to different workers' unions? Here's another thing, okay? A problem with, like, current unions is they're too bloated and rotted with, like, boomers that have taken over. They're too enfranchised. They don't really care about, you know, whether or not, you know, this benefits everybody else because the fuck you got mine mentality, right? So the way you could do it is by organizing strikes, by getting enough people to quite literally declare a strike. See, the thing is like the legal formality and Empire, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, is it doesn't really matter, but if you get enough people to basically do a union strike, who gives a shit what the legal union says? You know, you have enough people to perform a strike. Working class will always side with the Pinkertons. I disagree with that, man, because it all goes down to like self-interest. Problem is capitalism is very good at selling scams. That's the interesting thing. You know, the common tactic in the Mohawk Valley procedure is to gaslight the working class that they're not the working class and pretend that there's some either other capitalist agent that's like a, you know, an outside agitator. You can see this with the Amazon anti-union busting propaganda, is that, you know, we're a family here. We don't need some other, you know, outside union, you know, getting between us, you know, me, the wages, and the evil HR department. You know, we're a family here. Shadow union meta. Essentially, yeah, you can form shadow unions. The thing is, if you can get a large enough block and you can start making declarations saying, you know what, tell you what, we want better pay, want better PTO, and on top of that, how about that? You know, we also add in, you know, full healthcare benefits, health benefits, full-time work. Yeah, start setting up the list of demands that you want to do. And if you can cripple the economy to actually get it, and yes, I hate to say it, I don't care if this is glow posty or whatever, but if they're going to Congress to shut down your rail worker strike, like here's the thing. Look at the railroad worker strike in 2022. It doesn't matter whether or not Congress declares it illegal. The thing is if they throw all these railroad workers in jail, the railroad workers are not operating the railroads now, are they? They're still shut down. So that is bargaining power. It doesn't matter whether or not it's necessarily legal. It's bargaining power in the workplace to essentially get what you want. Because the thing is, what are they going to do? Bring in the National Guard to shoot the workers? Like, when they're dead, they can't operate those railways now, can they? Right? That's bargaining power. Okay? And so when it comes to negotiating in the workplace, you just got to know what your weight is worth and what people are not willing to do to essentially get your way. HR is something that needs to go, in my opinion. The thing is, it's not going to go is because it benefits the wealthy class. You know, so what we need is a workers' party that is essentially the HR of the American worker. That's what we need. Is because think about it this way. If HR is basically an extension of the corporate class, the CEO class, why not have an American workers' party that is essentially the HR department of the working class? I don't get it. You know, it would just essentially do the same things. It would just be legally ball busting like CEOs and companies to actually pay workers like their fair wage. That's all it would be. But yeah, so John Clippy, nice one. Sorry about that, your union sucks. The problem is that we got to get over the legacy unions and basically take advantage of it and change it to where it actually benefits like young, you know, people, essentially. Most of managers are just fake people justifying fake positions. It's the same way at my workplace, dude. Absolutely. There are a bunch of, you know, nepotistic nepo babies that just quite literally say buzzwords in a Microsoft Teams meeting to justify their existence, but they're making 300K. They really want us unalived and replace it with AI robots. See, the funny part, Bob John, I think they jumped the gun with AI. I've said it before. I think they literally put the cart before the horse. They quite literally assumed that they were going to replace it's like the person who won the lottery or thought they won the lottery. They started beating up their friends. They beat up their boss only to find out the lotto ticket wasn't real, and they just pissed everybody off. I think the ruling class jumped the gun with AI. They thought it was going to replace everybody, and they realized it wasn't, and so their little automated utopia where they genocide the wages just wasn't a possibility, and they couldn't just retreat out to their bunkers and destroy all of humanity. And so, like, now they're doing PR damage control. If you look at the CEO of NVIDIA, they're literally doing, you know, like PR control for, you know, their fuck-ups over the last 3 years of saying how it's going to replace everybody. I do worry that our American capitalism is so late stage that they don't care if companies actually get run. They just want to oppress wages. No, that's where we're at. We're at that. That's the thing, but that's not new. That was the same way in the Industrial Revolution. You see, it doesn't matter if it's more efficient, if people work less hours and are more productive, and it's ideally better for civilization. It doesn't matter if return to the office policies make no fucking sense in an era where gas prices are $4.19 a gallon. It matters about the controls, because it doesn't even matter about whether or not it's better for civilization, would make people's lives better. It's about control and oppressing the wages. We're already at that point. You know, it's like, and the funny part is that, like, at one point or another, you kind of have to realize that, like, you're going to have to be a dick to get what you want from that ruling class. You're going to have to go back at them. If Karens and HR were class conscious, the world would be fixed. I agree they went too hard on AI. It's more likely they get overthrown than AI replaces them. Yeah, no, essentially. Like, that's what's going to happen, is because now that they've hollowed out everything, AI is not this one-trick pony that does everything, so now they've definitely screwed the pooch, and so either they're going to have to give concessions to the working class, or they're going to get revolted against. And they're obviously upping up the surveillance state. The reason why they're pushing so hard with digital ID. And notice how all the digital ID stuff started to happen right after Luigi Mangione, by the way. Notice that right after Luigi Mangione did that to that CEO, digital ID was rolled out in 3 months, is because now they want to control everybody to like the nth degrees, because the fact is, you know, Luigi Mangione just showed that CEOs bleed. That's it. In fact, if people call FDR's economic comeback socialism, then I would say we go social. See, FDR wasn't a socialist, but he is more of a social democrat. Like Teddy Roosevelt wasn't a socialist, but he went after rich people because rich people just got so fucking insufferable that, you know, eventually they just pissed off people in the government, that even if people who were still staunch capitalists and anti-communists, the capitalist class pissed them off to such a degree that they have to actually go after the wealthy. Like, unironically, like Microsoft, you know, was doing this exact same shit in the 2000s, that even hardcore Reaganites had to backtrack on some of their policies because they're monopolistic bullshit. This isn't necessarily a new thing. And so, you know, again, like I said in my previous streams, is that when it comes to state policy and how I would dictate things, because I'm not somebody who really cares about ideals of either system, I'm much more of a pragmatist these days. Any kind of industry, yeah, let's get some green hats in the chat, man. You know, when it comes to policy, how I would do it is that anything that is a natural monopoly, such as networking infrastructure, you know, power, these things should 100% be nationalized, or maybe not even nationalized, but put under the control of local and state governments. You know, therefore they can't go into rent-seeking mode, and if they do go into rent-seeking mode, that's just basically, you know, tax surplus that can just be redistributed in civilization. And then if there's a company that is existing in a I guess I would say market that is competitive, that can be made competitive, just use your standard trust busting and antitrust laws to basically break up monopolies. There you go. And so, you know, therefore you're still getting the benefits of free market competition. And any other firms, like, I have no problem with that just being competitive in the first place, having that on the market side. I'm not so much about the ideology part. I want what's best for civilization that's going to give people a better standard of living, is because what we have right now just sucks so much dick, it's unbearable. That's why we're all here. Yeah, CEOs bleed, exactly. What are the origins of these issues? It's just greed, man. That's all it is. It's just greed. Do you think that the counter elite will be older millennial or young Gen X? I think it's going to be probably millennials, to be honest. You know, maybe not elder millennials, because there's a large swath of them that ended up just quite literally, mixed market, that quite literally got enfranchised into the existing system. And I literally have a coworker that's an elder millennial that quite literally was perfectly content gaslighting. This guy never rented an apartment in his life, and he was basically telling us that renting was the future, even though he'd bought a house every step of the way, right? You know, the elder millennials, depends on which one. Maybe they bought a property before the Great Cough, or maybe they don't, and so they're a part of our situation where they can't afford shit and they're paying $3,000 a month in rent. H-1B bigger threat to wages is because it's simply just oversupply of the labor force, which reduces wages and purchasing power. Russia doesn't have so much H-1B workers. See, the thing about it is they're using H-1Bs is because the fact is like, it goes down to the fact is that right now, when it comes to producing things in the United States, labor costs are incredibly high. So they're just trying to use underpaid wages to essentially stay competitive against China. I have a very particular video that's going to be calling out this behavior, is because the fact is it's just not going to work. I've already made my case for why it's not going to work. I've had a couple of midwits come in my comment section all cheery and gloaty, saying like the American empire is eternal, built off of like a giant pyramid of infinite Indians or some nonsense. And I've already explained why it's not going to work. And so the thing is just let people hang themselves, you know, with their own stupidity. H-1Bs are just foreign workers, temp workers. They're originally temp workers, and then corporations started abusing them as like a lifeline for their companies. Funny how Americans are trained to be paranoid of socialists, but abuse corporate oligarchs as just freedom in action. Yeah, it's just the double standard. The entire American system is it was one of the first bourgeois revolutions in the world, okay? You know, the first capitalist societies to emerge in the Industrial Revolution, probably even before it to some degree as well. So, you know, it doesn't surprise me that the United States is also the most strictly anti-communist as well. Market economy for information discovery and state control for coordination. Yeah, absolutely. That's actually perfect, is because the thing about it is that, like, you can use, you know, input-output matrices, and I was actually kind of surprised to discover that China does use input-output matrices to do some economic planning, which, you know, kind of surprised me a little bit. But, you know, you can use it for the stateside economy to actually coordinate efficient planning. H-1Bs used to be braceros from Mexico. Yeah, it changes. It changes. Nothing more permanent than temporary government program. Yeah, that's usual. As much as I love America, even I understand this can't go on forever, especially with the way things are. Absolutely. Something's going to give. It's just a matter of time. Like I said, I'm just biding time and building a base until things really start popping off. It's because, unfortunately, what we're talking about is we're just ahead of the curve. All of us in this chat are just ahead of the curve because we can see the writing on the walls, because in one way or another, we're part of this, you know, parasitic system that is just making us poor. We need the right to repair to become federally codified into law to prevent corporate rent seeking on every other product. You should own your own property. Absolutely. Isn't that the whole point of the United States? That's the reason why I was a right-wing libertarian, Jacob, is because I always liked the idea of, like, I want to own my piece of property and I'd like to be left alone. But the thing is that there's this, there's Scam Altman, there's Larry Ellison, and various other CEOs are like, you know what? We're going to change this entire system so only we get to have, like, the perks of individuality, but everybody else has to be at the mercy of the over-socialized masses and, the HR longhouse. Alistair, I would recommend you take a look at the Soviet cybernetic economy. Well, I have made earlier... The thing is, BA, my earlier videos talked about cybernetic planning by the Soviet Union. I actually talked about it. In fact, I have another video that I do want to come out with talking about, like, why Gauss plan failed to evolve and economically plan things using cybernetics. But the thing is that, like, I have a lot of older videos on that. I got some videos, planned on that as well. So I have read Soviet cybernetic planning. I'm also aware of Cybersyn as well, and I've looked at that, technology as well. Cybersyn was cool as fuck. It's kind of a tragedy how they got ousted from power, but, it's kind of like a lot of reformist politicians when they do get elected, is that you're going to have problems like that if you actually do anything. Larry Pelican trying to swallow a fish that's too big. Yeah, absolutely. Capitalism kind of born in the late Middle Age, but it was intercepted as the devilish system, but got popularized by industrialization. See, this is why at the end of the day, it's like, if you believe in dialectical and historical materialism, you kind of recognize that modes of production are kind of tied to the productive forces that, catapult them into popularity. It's like, yeah, you can have the relations of production of capitalism at play, but that doesn't necessarily give it a comparative advantage. That was until the Industrial Revolution and the first, instances of private capital being the steam engine and the various things where people could invest in capital to expand the productive forces. It's really fucking evil how oligarchs insist on crushing wages for blue and white collar workers while price gouging the hell out of people for housing and rent. Yeah, and that's gonna come to, like, backfire.
For sure.
Yeah. Oh, what's up, Renton? How you doing, man? Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to Wage Rage Radio.
Hey, welcome. Yeah, I can't. This is the first time I'm talking to you. I just want to say I have a very similar background to you. I have a mechanical engineering degree, but I'm working maintenance nowadays in this wonderful economy of capitalist utopia America.
Gotta love it.
So I'm scratching my back.
We were told these would be the safe jobs ad infinitum. It's kind of crazy how we, 10 years ago, the funny part is, like, even 5 years ago, 6 years ago, if you were in mechanical engineering, this would be a good job. You would have a house, you would have a fat 401k, and you'd have enough money to save really rapidly. It's crazy, like, how far it's fallen, even for electrical engineering myself. It's like, if it ever came out who I worked for, like, it would go crazy. It's because, like, my salary does not afford the average house. The only reason I have a house is quite literally because me and my wife both work and we nominally afford it. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, go on, man.
It's primarily my wife. Her father was a factory manager in a different country. And then now she's a pilot. Yeah. But also it's like I work and also I'm also trying to comfort my proletariat ease after doing a 12-hour shift with wine and scratching my back with a 1 1/4 inch wrench on my back right now. So, and that's how I try to soothe my anger these days. Also, I have a second job for the U.S. government, and it's so much fun watching the current state of affairs. I wish I could delve further. If you want to PM me, I would love to, but at the same time, I don't want to make it too publicly obvious because
it's all good.
I'm very...
Yeah, they don't pay members of the bourgeois state that much anymore. I mean, I don't mean to be like a stereotypical asshole, but it's kind of like the state kind of imperialized the shit out of other countries, so it doesn't surprise me that it's kind of like turning on itself. Yeah. It doesn't surprise me, man. It's fucking terrible.
Pretty good, but at the same time, when you rely on reservists for so much, reserves and National Guard, it's like the general economy is generally felt by your service members. So guess what?
Yeah.
Oh, I can attest to that one. That shit is. You would think my salary would at least help me in my fucking rent, but I can barely afford that, and I'm probably need a third job at this point. So
Yeah, mechanical engineer
so
that needs a second
fortunate.
job. It's funny. Like, you're coming on my chat. I know I'm not alone. The funny part is I just may have spoken out early and shared my experience because, like, the funny part, Rinton, is like what you're telling me. The experience that you told me right now. When I came on to my channel, I started talking about these exact same things. When I said I make 6 figures, but I cannot afford the average house, you would not believe like how many people decided to try and gaslight me over that. And I made sure I kept the numbers to smack those people down. And it feels embarrassing in a sort of sense, is because the thing is, like, you're being gaslit over something that should be so trivially easy. Something that was difficult, like mechanical engineering, should pay a decent salary in this country, but it doesn't anymore. And it's insane. And the worst part about it is that we're gaslit about it. We're lied to about it. And they don't want to admit the truth on this either. That's the worst part about it of all. And the funny part is, I know for a fact that you probably have like boomer engineers at your workplace or previous workplace that make more than you, but they also have a lower cost of living. They have a sub $1,000 a month mortgage payment. You know, they don't pay as much towards housing as that you do, right? And that's the crazy thing. You're probably paying more in your rent than they are paying towards their mortgage, towards something they actually get to own. Crazy.
Thank God. The only saving grace about my situation is that I married a woman who pushed me to buy my house in 2019.
Oh, dude,
so I was able to refinance it.
Good. You probably got those good low COVID rates, so you're on the safe haven side of the aisle a little bit.
Yes. Otherwise, I would be totally screwed. That's my only saving grace.
Yeah. It is fucking crazy how bad things have gotten. See, I didn't buy a house till after all that stuff because, like, me and my wife wanted to settle down a little bit. But yeah, that's how crazy it's gotten. Our boomer engineers in my old geotechnical drilling company made an amazing wage. When we began to get younger engineers, they were making less than our vehicle operators. Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, it's the same with my workplace. And the funny part is, like, I said it in one of my older videos, and it's funny because you go look at the comments, there are a couple of midwits that try to gaslight me on this one, is that I have an elder millennial at my workplace that has never rented an apartment in his life. And then I have a younger, elderly Zoomer in my workplace, and he's never going to own a house in his life. And he's just nothing but rented, like, 1-bedroom apartments with his wife. Night and day realities that these two groups of people have. And it's crazy that they would gaslight over it. I'm an elder millennial, and the only reason I have a house is because I bought mine as a short sale from a previous owner who was facing foreclosure, and I got it well below market value. Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Then if you bought it before COVID, then you're good. Essentially 7 years for a 4-year degree, 3 years for Mickey Mouse classes. I'm literally getting ready to go back to living in my car because it's obvious that the owner of the building I'm renting right now is a damn slumlord. Hey, man, dude, Jay, let me give you some advice, okay? If you need somebody to help you with a slumlord that's not doing repairs, me and Empire can give you some advice. If you want to add me on Discord and we can start talking about how to ball bust your landlord to actually get some repairs going on, give me a list of things that you want done. We can start going over legal codes, and then we can quite literally start coming up with a plan how we can get your landlord to do it on time and start using legal action against them. I invite you, come into my chat, ping me, say what your name was on YouTube so I don't forget you, and we can start building a case against your landlord, and I can help you with the PR. Now, if your landlord gets really bad, I can blast his ass on YouTube, and we can all make fun of him in a chat or a stream, right? Now, obviously, I don't go straight guns blasting when it comes to a shitty landlord. I usually try to reason with them one-on-one and say, hey, you know, how would this look if I were to blast this in public to get them to do their way, just like I've done with other landlords. But the thing is that's always an option. So feel free to reach out to me, man. You guys hosting the stream all seem to be highly educated STEM workers. You should be well off upper middle class. You are struggling to get by, and that's how you know how fucked things are. The funny part is I told my wife exactly that. It's like, you know, it's not us that are alone in dealing with this. Like, if I'm struggling, because I've always thought of this way, okay, my background, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but the thing is, I have an impressive technical background. I've done a lot of really cool things. I really like that I studied engineering. I'm a proud engineer in a sort of sense. But the thing is, if I am just nominally above water, you know, like, you know, when you go into that section of the pool where you can kind of stay, but your, you know, toes are touching the bottom or whatever, right? You know, that's me. Everybody else must be struggling. And the funny part is, as soon as I looked in the numbers, I realized, holy shit, how bad things really were. And the only difference is they're relying on a system of gaslights to keep people from talking about it. So yeah, I like the idea of mandatory worker cooperatives that can pass binding rules for companies, kind of like those employee-owned companies. No, absolutely, I support worker cooperatives. I support market, you know, socialism, if you want to call it that or whatever. The intelligent class, oh, hold on a sec. Man, they gaslight so much that maybe gas prices would go down if they just stopped. Absolutely, dude. The intelligent class always seemed to misrepented growing up, but an older me realized that it was all smoke and mirrors, and I'm just a younger millennial of like 1991 to 1997. Do you think people will tolerate another government bailout in 2008 happens again? No, it won't. It's because if you look at the actual Occupy Wall Street, I know I'm going to get a whole bunch of glowies coming into my comment section trying to be ContraPoints or whatever, saying like, you're not going to do anything kind of nonsense to demoralize people. But here's the thing. If for whatever reason the economy crashes because he overbuilt rental units, which I personally believe that they are, I think they overproduced apartment complexes, it's going to crash the housing market, and they bailed out Blackstone, a company that is quite literally trying to make the average American perpetual renters in their own homeland, you were going to see like that. People are just going to lose their shit. They're going to lose their minds over it. Like, you're not going to, like, I can't really stop anybody from doing this because it's a completely different mentality. You look at the Occupy Wall Street protests, they were much more peaceful. They were much more optimistic. You look at the sentiment of our generation and onward, late millennials and Gen Z, they don't share that optimism. They're like, I was talking with my old man about that, and he does not like the fact that younger generations are way more violent than older generations. And I said, well, look at the hand you've dealt younger generations, and you can't tell me you're surprised about the fact that, you know, younger people are so violent in their rhetoric. So no, I think there's gonna be a chimp out if they do that. Elderly Zoom sounds awful. Zoom or iPhones, yeah, I don't know about that one. That's more like a Gen Alpha thing with the key, like the iPad generation. There may be a general uprising, but nothing substantive, as there doesn't seem to be any organization. Hands for toothpicks. I'm going to be honest with you. It's too early for that. Like, the organization, there's no organization right now is because we're just exiting a period of right-wing populism. So, of course, you're not going to see that. But the thing is, right-wing populism peaked with Charlie Kirk. It's going down from there. And so, because people are being forced to address the cost of living crisis, is because the reason people voted for Trump in 2024 is because they were hoping to bring back the first Trump presidency economy. But that wasn't going to happen. Trump was never going to step on the toes of the wealthy to actually get what they want. Every single time Trump has talked about cracking down on corporate landlords like Blackstone or whatever, he just capitulates to boomers. He doesn't step on the toes. And like, even with the oil shale bosses, he's too much of a coward to do anything. Because the fact is that he has to step on the toes of the ruling class to actually make the standard of living better for everybody else. And he's not going to do that. He's too much of a coward. And so that's why I say Trump's like the 120 IQ range politician equivalent, is because he knows what's wrong. He just can't do anything about it. The city deferred to the county, and the county cried not enough money and ended up just basically telling me just move on. No, there's ways to actually go about it. I'm going to be honest with you, and the funny part is if you give somebody bad publicity, you can really give them money for a run for their money. The only thing that, like, when we're doing a PR offensive, Jay, if you really wanted to go down that route to light a fire into your landlord's ass because it would be funny, is that, you know, essentially we just have to make sure that we're not making any defamatory statements. And I've talked with Empire about that. We've talked a little about the law when it comes to doing a PR attack on somebody to basically expose somebody's shitty behavior. So, endless critique of power, ContraPoints. Endless critique of power. You want to talk about, like, ContraPoints, and that's kind of the funny part, is because I remember when ContraPoints tried to gaslight Jason Unruh about, like, having a hidden privilege because he wore a suit, even though Lenin wore a suit too. That's peak, like, bourgeois gaslight nonsense right there. You're gonna gaslight somebody for being bourgeois because they wore a suit and tie. Like, how peak, like, bourgeois garbage is that? Yeah, no, ContraPoints, endless critique of power, ends up joining the deep state diddlers. Yeah, that's what she meant by power, that kind of power. But, you know, I rest my case on that idiot. You know, she's gonna do her own thing. You know, there's a difference in mentality between us and them, is because the fact is none of us are enfranchised, so we couldn't care less about mincing our words with this particular group of people, you know? So either allow the average American to afford their own home, or we're gonna keep doing our own thing. That's the way I see it. Hey, I see the stream chat is a bit behind or something. Yes, I actually am behind on reading the chat, is because the fact is like, I'm trying to, you know, address people's comments as they come along, but it's getting a little bit hard to. I kind of go into a long spiel over one person's comment. So, you know, if your comment gets missed, you know, feel free to type it again, man. I'll get around to it eventually. How long will this stream last? However long I feel like it. It's Friday evening, man. If you don't enjoy it, you could always just, you know, check out and say, don't recommend channel if you're not that interested. I'm just saying, man. You don't have to watch anything. Both Republicans and Democrats serve oligarchs way too much. What passes for the left in the United States is a bad joke. We need to flip politics on its head. Yeah, absolutely. Just focus on working class politics. That's all it is. And when you focus on that, you're going to start, you know, tapping into resentment that hasn't been tapped into in a while. Because the fact is, we're all been put into a circumstance where we didn't ask to be put into it. We didn't ask to care about working class politics. It's just the fact is the average house price is $500,000 and the average income is $60K. Rural church poor. So there's some studies coming out that iPad kids about how they're essentially becoming lobotomized. I wouldn't be surprised about that. I don't know how some people can quite literally. Yeah, we're starting the Mario Party. We're 100% starting the Mario Party. Let's get some green hats in here. We need to get some, you know, cheers on for I've been lurking in the stream for a while. You the goat, Alistair. Man, dude, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you coming by the chat. You know, feel free to jump on stage if you want to have a conversation and share an experience. So, yeah, let's get the Mario Party going, dude. Let's get some Luigi hats in the chat. Let's get that going. Let's get some Luigi hat energy. Yeah, how many of you people actually hate rich people? I hate billionaires. So get some green hats in the chat. Let's get this chat with some green hat energy. We're all being screwed by the billionaire class. Let's get some green hats in the chat. I want to see the chat flooded with absolute green hats. You know, so I want you to do it so much that we end up on Fox News and like Jesse Waters start bitching about us being left-wing extremists. Now I'm seeing it. Now we're getting it. Now we're getting
Chip Roy is having connections.
There's probably some billionaire brat that's probably having a meltdown about the live stream, but that's okay.
Hey,
what's up?
Hi,
man?
I'm a new fan of you. come from like a left-wing background. I know about your right-wing background, but that's cool to me, honestly.
Okay.
I just wanted to have some advice on like how should I navigate? Like, I'm 19, I have like no job opportunities. I've just been burned by the job market. I just wanted to know, is there any way, like, what are like some practical advice to just help me in this, just get out of this?
Do you live with your parents? There's no shame if you do,
Yeah,
because honestly, that's probably the biggest thing I'd recommend. If your parents aren't assholes, just work a job, save as much money as possible. And the thing about housing, let me give you a little bit of secret about housing, is that if you're going to decide to buy a house, and it's kind of hard at 19, maybe if you could jump into a higher income bracket, this might help your case. But the thing is, live with your parents as much as you possibly can. It's because you don't want to be out on your own, splitting a 3-bedroom apartment with 2 other dudes where you're just barely making it. Because like there's a lot of people in that, so don't be in a rush to like get out of your parents' house just because of how bad the economy is. That's my recommendation right now. And save up as much money as possible, invest in things like index funds, so you can actually have something that can build wealth to some degree, is because the fact is the only way you're going to get property in this market is if you have like a ton of liquidity that you can buy a house with a really big fat down payment, a stable enough job to basically pay off the mortgage. That's my advice to you. But it's a tough world, man. You've been given the short straw. The job market is ass and everything's expensive.
Nah, it's crazy because like even my first job I got when I was 16, it was basically through my dad and a business partner of his. He paid me for like this sales associate job where I'm like a receptionist, basically. $7 minimum in Florida. I was 16, like that.
Wow.
Those are like servers, no tips or anything for 3 months.
Yeah, no,
And-
that's the thing. You see, $7.25. This is how bad the economy has gotten. See, the thing is like they raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour, not through any legislation, just because the fact is it's virtually impossible to live off of anything less than $15 an hour. If you didn't notice, it's crazy.
Yeah, and oh, sorry. is it okay
Potentially, yeah. So potentially, what you can do, and I always recommend this, right? You should go online and you can look up and you can read how to run a business. There's plenty of free textbooks. What is viable nowadays is there's going to be a whole echelon of boomers who have fucked themselves over because they didn't include their children in running their business. So now there's a bunch of these businesses that are potentially for sale. You can buy them for very, very cheap. 50,000 or 70,000, and if the business itself actually has a profitability to it, you can actually use their previous profitability to get a bank loan. Banks tend to want to give these loans if the investment is a surefire thing. And if you can get enough knowledge on how to run a business so that you're not going to sabotage yourself here, you can, through time and through identification of whatever the business is, purchase it. I have a friend who 3 years ago purchased a business from a boomer for about $50,000, and it is now worth about $1 million. And that was because the boomer never figured out how to use the fucking internet and sell his stuff online, which is what my friend did. It's pretty easy. There's a lot of websites available for it, but you need to learn how to run a business, which is all freely available. And while you're living with your parent, you should spend time doing that on the side and working and building experience. That would be the way forward for a lot of people. That's less than a meme. and offers you a better chance if you're going to be stuck where you are.
Yeah. And another thing is that, like, Jacob in the chat pointed out something very interesting. It's like, so even though I rag on engineering not being as great of a job as it is, it's still a fairly stable one if you can tolerate the bullshit. Blue collar work's another one. HVAC, pipe fitting are decent fields, but you got to be careful with that not to destroy your body by the time you're 40. So, you know, that's another opportunity what you could do to kind of get ahead a little bit. But, you know, overall, it, you know, there's not really a clear-cut way to success. Like, the K-shaped economy is consolidated, and like these are some pathway options you can kind of do to get nominally ahead. But they have really pulled the ladder pretty hard. Business
what's funny
has side aura. Yeah, who's got a point?
What's funny is that I'm actually, I'd say I'm pretty privileged. My dad moved here in like around 2005, had me in 2006, and has been having a really good construction business. But you know, like, nobody's doing remodels anymore because of the economy, so money's tight. And I've been working for him for like the past 3 years. It's just he doesn't pay me. I mean, like, I'm thankful for like everything they've done, but they're conservative and everything. I'm like, I'm queer, you know, there's already like a bunch of issues I have, and then my dad doesn't pay me, like, and it just made me really it just made me really dislike his construction business. But honestly, I think I should just log in and help him out with that, because he can't use the internet. If I just marketed for him, I'm sure that I could like help him get way more reach.
Yeah. I was considered far right because I didn't see the point of decolonizing my IT workflow. See, the thing is that DEI stuff that was probably propped up by Larry Fink is dead because it was really just there to antagonize Occupy Wall Street. But since Occupy Wall Street's been dead for 15 years, like, that shit's so irrelevant. See, like, the whole DEI shit that BlackRock did, it didn't fail. It succeeded in its mission of destroying Occupy Wall Street. You know, because I use the age-old term master slave. You know, they changed, like, funny enough, with GitHub and, you know, repositories, they try to change master to main to be more politically correct. And it was one of the dumbest fucking things. Like, who cares? It's just a name. You know, but it's amazing, like, how people turn everything into, like, some colonial relationship or whatever. One of the most retarded fucking things I've ever heard. Yeah, I'm 45 and my body is fairly messed up. Yeah, that's kind of thing. If you can pivot to something like that's a lab job, Jacob, I would 100% recommend it. You know, just get an engineering degree. You're probably going to, like, you're going to blow every other fresh out of high school, like, student in engineering right out of the water, Jacob, if you decide to pivot to that. You go to more like a hardware engineering. That's my honest take. Especially if you do HVAC, just do mechanical engineering. Engineering market got bad. Computer science, the job market for computer science. Here's the fun part that they don't really tell you a whole lot about the computer science job market, is that it's just essentially back at pre-COVID levels. They did a hiring spree for some reason, you know, during COVID, and it turned out they hired up a bunch of people they just didn't need. The amount of job roles for computer science are pretty comparable, like 2019 and before. When do you think the revolution will happen? Sooner in our lifetimes? Oh, it's 100% going to be in our lifetimes, Polaris. It's pretty much inevitable at this point, is because the thing is that people do, you know, it all goes down to that little weight, this opportunity cost that everybody runs in the back of their head, okay? You know, is tolerating the state of affairs, you know, so unbearable that I'm going to commit armed insurrection against my government, despite the fact that I could either be thrown in jail or killed? You know, if that ever gets overridden, then people do wacko shit. It's like with the warehouse guy. You know, it's an active revolution is because he did the opportunity cost in the back of his head, and at one point or another he realized, oh, it's not going to get better. I'm just going to burn shit down. I don't really care. At least I'll have a roof over my head in jail. So I got called literally Hitler enough times, and I said, fine. Yeah, at one point or another, you just got to stop caring about what other people say and just kind of start, you know, owning whatever politics it is. We can do DEI without harming the working class. Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to be antagonistic to other sections of the working class, and that's the way you can do it. Listen, if China owns the USA economy and their intentions are to downsize the USA economy by 5%, it just cuts the Chinese economy. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't even know if that's China's goal with the United States. For the most part, China's just by and large ignoring the United States and what it's doing. Which is funny, is because trying to fix all these terms to be more politically correct is just going to have the literal opposite effect. Well, yeah, that's why the social progressivist left is more unpopular than it's ever been, and nobody takes it seriously anymore. And I'm saying that as somebody who was nominally on the progressive left for the long time and realizing, like, you know, these people are just kind of idiotic and they're not going to go anywhere. DEI was literally formulated by BlackRock. Lamau, you don't need to do any of it all. Well, yeah, that's kind of thing. It was a failed social experiment. Well, I would say it failed. It succeeded in its goal of destroying Occupy Wall Street, and so they did a pretty effective job with that, is because, you know, everybody hates the left now. I would say the DEI by BlackRock actually, you know, succeeded in its goal. Jobs that are at pre-COVID, but it's screwed because ever since the amount of CS grads and H-1Bs pool is way bigger compared to pre-COVID. Yeah, that's the big difference. The roles are about the same, but it's way more oversaturated and way more competitive. Oil prices in the USA are right now subsidized as fuck. We can't even do capitalism forever. Yeah, I agree. True. Also watch your money in the stocks, 401ks, etc. Remember, 2008 destroyed portfolios. We're going to default on our national debt at some point in shape or another. Yeah, that's my bet. They're not lowering interest rates. Here's the thing. For a recession to happen, the Federal Reserve has to be so retarded not to print money, is because the fact is they can literally print their way out of like any recession. But the thing is they can't print so much, otherwise it causes a ton of inflation. And so they've got to play this kind of balancing game where they can't have interest rates too low where they cause another inflation crisis, but they can't have them too high where they essentially liquidity star the entire system and then nobody has any money to buy anything. And I've been pointing towards a liquidity crisis since 2025 because, you know, if people are using Klarna to buy groceries, that tells you that they don't make enough money to afford groceries on their own. And so that tells me people are not actually paid enough to buy things, and so they can't stimulate the economy. And so when you can't stimulate the economy and people don't buy things, you know, what happens is that, you know, companies notice a drop in the profit, they lay people off, and more laid off people have no buying power, and people with no buying power don't buy things, so that's less demand, and you have a depressionary or recessionary feedback loop where unemployed people can't buy anything, so companies lay off people even more. And so that's why, like, you know, they print so much money, is because the fact is it's just to stimulate the economy. So, do you think a movement that would be socially conservative or economically socialist would be extremely popular right now? Yeah, I could 100% bank on it, is because the fact is right now there's a vast majority of young, like, far-right generation Zyklon, unironically, is never going to own their own home. They're never going to be able to settle down and have a family. So, pitching them the idea of, like, hey, we're going to seize boomers' secondary properties and liquidate BlackRock. And then also, if I just said close the borders and end H-1B, that would probably sell very well with young right. I'm just saying. And I'm saying that as an economic leftist. Yes, but that movement would be opportunist as fuck. I mean, yeah, but that's kind of thing. Some people are going to take advantage of the opportunity because, like, why would I not throw, like, a bone to the political right if they're going to actually, like, you know, start engaging in pro-working class politics? It's like there's not really any harm with having closed border policies if that's what's going to pacify the right to kind of, like, you know, let them have their way for a little bit. So I'm okay with that. I've been on the internet for 40 hours for a week a decade. This community is the most constructive, politically balanced, and nuanced I've ever found. Yeah, I bet you it's a breath of fresh air, is because we're not just trying to make, like, talking points to, like, cater to one particular side of the aisle. That's never been my shtick. And more often than not, when I find people that do that, they're always threading a fine line where if they say something slightly out of line with, like, the supposed, like, over-socialized midwit community, they just get ostracized completely. And so I've taken a more open, you know, discussion approach with having people talk about things, even the more controversial ones. Nick Fuentes is flirting with socially conservative and economically left ideologies in his speeches. Yeah, absolutely. Unironically, it's because that section of the young right is in the same boat as us, because the fact is like, they're never going to afford their own homes, and they're being mocked and derided by people like Matt Walsh, which I'm pretty sure, like, Matt Ford 888 talked about earlier in the chat. Most communists are so blatantly opportunists. Here's a hot take. Hands for toothpicks. Is that I've noticed that a lot of times when people call themselves communists, it's usually for a post hoc rationalization for some other thing that they believe that communism is going to help them achieve. So I'll say it right off the bat, like right now. The reason I like communism, the reason I like the dictatorship of the proletariat, is because I see a more meritocratic and better society through a workers' democracy than what we have right now. Most other people will not be honest about what they see or want, you know, through a supposed ideology, and they'll just continuously do, like, post hoc rationalizations. Some people become communists is because they just don't like the West, and they just engage in endless third worldism, and they just want to antagonize the West. And there's no wrong answers on that one, right? Because if you look at a lot of, like, you know, communist parties within, like, the East, yeah, they were incredibly nationalistic, they were highly third worldist, and they just wanted to kick out Western imperial powers because they wanted to preserve their national sovereignty. So the thing is people adopt ideologies that benefit them in some sort of way, and communism is no different. On Instagram, there was this lady celebrating the death of Iranian communists because they're anti-Iran and anti-American. Yeah, I remember reading about that. Oh, did you want to say something? Oh, I guess I'll continue on. Communism is going
wanted to say, I mean...
Oh, yeah, go for it, man. Oh, yeah, go ahead, man.
So I just find myself... Oh, let me get close to the microphone.
Yeah.
But I finding myself very much in line with Ernst Röhm, much more than, say, the communists or what have you. And it's like, I'm much more on the right-leaning side, but then again, I've kind of expressed that I'm more right-leaning in general.
That's fair.
But at the same time, it's like, the left, even even when you had, like, say, Lenin Institute, all his reforms, they had to end up going to Stalin, which was much more conservative, if you will, like culturally, in order to have a socialist system. And it's like, yeah, you don't think socialism in one country is pretty similar to a national socialist system? And we've
a lot of
me
people
and you have
criticize
talked,
that.
I think earlier today or maybe yesterday, about similar things. I have a different YouTube channel, Summer Breeze, if you will. Anyway, but it just blows my mind that it's like socially conservative, fiscally fuck around until you find the right solution.
Yeah, that works for me. And like that's
Hey
kind
man,
of thing.
can I tell my story too, man? Like I had a really like, yeah. Listen, so during COVID, I'm a truck driver, right?
Yeah.
I went over the road during COVID because I made a lot of money. Like, it was like $2,500, almost $3,000 a week. A lot of weeks.
Nice.
Like, during like 2020. Right after that, they imported the entire third world into the trucking industry, and I went from that to $500 a week. I lost my house, my family, my car, everything. I ended up living with my parents again, right? And like it's just now, like I'm getting back to being able to rebuild, right? Because I'm making like the same amount of money that I started making when I started trucking about 14 years ago.
Me and my wife are going through something similar. Maybe not to that degree, but you know, we've felt that too. We're like, are we gonna lose the house? Are we gonna have to get rid of it? Like that's kind of thing. I've been through that too. I bet you there's more people in the chat that have also been through that too. It fucking sucks. I get it.
Yeah, it's all like, and like I'll be honest with you, like I don't feel like I'm not mad at my boss. Like he's a millionaire or whatever, he got lots of money. But like on the same level, like I mean, he burned his house down and like 3 or 4 of the trucks for the insurance money, trying to float the business through, because he was taking it the same way we were, you know, because he's a small business.
Yeah,
it wasn't like I'm an independent contractor, right? So like I don't get any health insurance or anything like that.
Yeah, that's the big thing. It's like they gig work with you in a sort of sense. Like that's kind of thing. That's the funny part. What I've always hated about that's the gig worker bullshit. Basically, they tell you that you're an independent contractor, but what they mean is they're going to pay you, you know, only like the thing is all these companies are doing opportunity costs to pay people less. And so if they put you independent contractor, they don't have to dole out benefits. They make you pay for the truck or the rig, right? You know, it's kind of crazy how they'll basically just offset the cost to you.
Well, the problem is, and like it's because of Amazon, right? And like Walmart, these giant companies. They want to sign these logistics contracts with like big companies like JB Hunt, or Hunt's the big one, or Snyder, or whoever it is, and they'll sign them for 5 or 6 years where they'll lock in the rates. And so therefore that's like the top end of what anybody can ever get out of. So if you want to be in the business, you know what I mean, and like have any like you can't really make any actual money, right? Because you have to go by their rates with all the businesses. And so there's nothing you can really do. You just, you know, and so like I know that like doing this, I don't want to own a truck, right? Because like I'm not going to pay, you know, $20,000 for a new engine, or you know, I mean, like 50 grand for a new transmission. I'm not doing all that. The hell with all that, man. That's unnecessary. But like I'm going to go work for this company because I have the opportunity to go, hey, listen, if I don't want to work, it's my business. You know, what I mean, I'm not going to make any money that day, and I enjoy that freedom, right? There's no camera in the truck watching me. You know, there's no like cameras outside standing here like watching everything around me and everything I do. I don't get calls for hard breaks. If it's 2 a.m, I can roll to a stop sign, you know, on like a private lot, and I don't get a phone call from safety, which that's what all these truck drivers are doing now. Right? Everybody's tolerating this because they brought in, let's be honest, females and immigrants, right, to do these jobs, and they actually can't drive. They watch them 24 hours a day to make sure that they don't ever mess up, and they don't care.
Yeah, they're doing that infinite surveillance stuff, just like productivity squeeze wages. It's absolutely insane. They're doing this like white collar workers too, but trying to like do it with their computers and stuff like that. It's crazy how much they just like completely back end everything to basically spy on people and productivity squeeze. Even if it doesn't contribute to any increase in productivity whatsoever, they're still going to try it. It's amazing, and they'll just spend so much money just to do it, to torment the wages. It's crazy. It's dystopian as shit, absolutely. I had to eat peanut butter, couldn't send some money home, had to give it up after.
Oh,
go on, man.
You know what I mean? Right? Like the insurance rates are insane. So like in order to get the insurance rates down, the insurance company says, hey, listen, you had to have this in your truck. You know, you had to do this. You had to put this rollover sensor in. You had to put this spiller track in. You had to put whatever the system is, that they're putting out at the moment, right? You have to put all these things onto your vehicle, and then we'll drop your insurance rates, right? And that's how they're like passing on this. And by the way, half the reason these houses are the way they are, why you can't work from home, is because all these municipalities and cities and townships are completely underwater. Right? There's been a pension crisis going on to where like they set up all these pensions back in the 1960s and 70s for the state workers and the city workers, and never revisited it until 2015. They noticed they're like 5 and 6% funded in some cases. So they stood here and they went around. They had no idea how they were going to solve it. They went around. They overvalued everyone's home on the property tax thing, and then when we had the remote work option, they said, no, you're coming back to work so you can stand here and go to these local businesses and pay all this nonsense.
That's happening to me right now. They thing is, all these towns are going to be losing such a huge tax basis because they're putting everybody back in the office. It's fucking hilarious. It's like that's the same situation with me and my wife. It's like, they're doing like full RTO here in the middle of a gas crisis. And they're like, time to come back into the office. I even messaged my boss. It's like, do we have to do this? It's like, we got to do it for the team values or some nonsense like that. I'm like, so this is bureaucracy speak, so all the HR pedophiles can get unlimited remote work, but everybody else has to wage slave away in your stupid little lab. Like, okay, I get it. The important people have to do the dirty work, but you get to go, do your stupid little daycare job on the side. We get it.
Well, yeah, it's literally because, they want that tax revenue for, it's the cities and municipalities and governments that are forcing this issue. Right? Yeah. Because they want the office building, they want the restaurants, they want all these things full, and this tax revenue coming in because they're underwater. They can't pay the pensions that they promised.
Another thing is they want their stupid little properties to go endlessly up in value, and if the wages are all remoting in the countryside, they're not going into the office to pay for these fucking overpriced snacks at their stupid little snack bars and stuff like that. They're not paying for all these little things. They're not paying for the gas to commute in the place. There's so many industries that prop it up, even if it's artificial and inefficient as shit. They'll still get mad at wages for not paying into this stupid artificially propped up system.
Yeah, this is all this is. Right? At the end of the day, they literally they want you back in this local municipality so that you can fund their nonsense. Yeah. Right? So that the state workers and because that's their base. And that's something about the left and the right that actually is separate. Is the left employs and takes care of their base. Right? Those the 20 million government workers throughout the United States. Right? And not just the federal people, the state and local people, they take care of them. Right? See, the right will never do that, ever.
Yeah, the right's always got to betray its base. Clippy made a good point. Midwest work from home is the dream at the moment. Yeah, you know what? Okay, if you join my Luigi army, my green hat army, Clippy, dude, that is going to become a reality. The proletarian vacation centers in the Midwest. But the thing is Montana's being taken over by bourgeois swine. Okay, and so unless we build an army, unless if we seize power and drive these people out, that's going to remain a dream. We have to drive the wealthy out of Montana's because they've completely pushed out the locals. How fucked up is that, dude? We need to engage in endless class warfare against the bourgeoisie for quite literally ruining the best parts of the country. We're gonna quite literally take these CEOs that have offshored all our jobs to India. We're gonna take away their citizenship, and then we're gonna air dump them into the Ganges River. That's what I say, dude. That drop them.
I agree. Yeah. I started the Treppy state. Right, where we're gonna have trebuchets built by engineers. It's like a make work job, right? And then just start trebucheting people out of the fucking country into the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. Just dump them right in with the sharks, man. The hell with listen, we'll have Budweiser sponsor it. We'll Make-A-Wish Foundation kids with their knit hats pulling. It'll be great. Put it on TV, pay-per-view. We'll make revenue out of it. It'd be awesome. You know what I mean? Just get rid of
absolutely.
all. And by the way, here in Appalachia, they're dumping data centers everywhere. And Amazon warehouses, they're dumping them here and chopping off the top of mountains and putting them and then sucking up all the groundwater. Right? Yep. And then raising everybody's electricity to the poorest people in the country can't survive anymore.
Yep.
Now here's something I'm curious about. What exactly is the elite's plan for when the entire thing is propping up this fake economy? Because as you know, it doesn't really make anything, and everything that's made in the USA has imported components anyways. And some of the most important components like semiconductors aren't even made here. So what on earth is their plan actually for when the US dollar loses which is going to happen at some point within the next 20 years. Because we can see already by what's been happening, you know, China's been pushing out this infrastructure so that all its trading partners and investment partners can use their yuan system. So
SIPs, like all these different infrastructure things to create a parallel economy of the United States, and then our ruling class is just too busy talking about like data centers in space for the next investment hype cycle. It's actually kind of pathetic what our like wealthy members are doing. It is actually really stupidly fucking pathetic. But again, you know, the reason why I criticize it is because the fact is like, think about it this way. It's like you criticize your opponent for doing a stupid decision, but you don't stop them from doing it. Is because the fact is, why would you try and stop somebody doing something stupid that's just destroying themselves? Like, they're just pissing everybody off. Like, here, look at this chat. I've had like 3 blue-collar workers come onto my stream so far, share their experience. Truck driver, welder, okay? How fucked up do you have to be to like get 2 sections of the working class that traditionally didn't actually get along all that well, but literally screw out both sides so bad where they're starting to actually agree on things? Like, how fucking stupid do you have to be? Like, I'm an engineer, like a white-collar worker, and white-collar workers, you know, blue-collar workers used to be all the damn time, but the ruling class is fucked up so bad that they got everybody coming together being like, you know what, we all hate these CEOs is because they've just imported infinite foreign labor, offshored our jobs to foreign lands, and then told us that we were lazy. Like, how fucked up are these people?
You know what another thing too is, people aren't paying attention to this war that's going on right now, but the US has completely depleted most of its inventories of important weapons. Yeah. So I don't know how they're expecting to keep power for that much longer. I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to get this channel in trouble, but you know what I mean.
It. But no, I know exactly what you mean. The weapon stockpile is dwindling, and these people are like jumping the boat. Like, you know, the funny part, at one point or another, like, we've all watched Alex Jones. There's a lot of right-wing people in my chat and stuff like that. We all watched Alex Jones. These people are lizard demons. They're eating children. It turned out they were eating children, but they weren't exactly lizard demons. They're just incredibly retarded, like pedophiles. That's all they are. It's crazy. It's crazy because the fact is there's no long-term plan. They're just idiots. And so the great thing is that more people are waking up, and if we continue to organize and spread these ideas, these people are going to destroy themselves in their own court of public opinion. Like, the time's coming. They don't realize it. Now, here's kind of the thing. This is why I said at the beginning of the stream, here's how it's going to go, and you can call me, tell me I'm wrong, but I'm going to make a bet. Is so far, most of the things I bet on my own channel have turned out to be true. But here's my bet. You're going to see more Luigis. You're going to see more warehouse Luigis. They're going to try and use the full force of the state to go through a second Red Scare. And that's kind of the funny part. None of you might even identify as communists, but the ruling class is going to identify you as communists if you talk about working class issues, because they don't really care. If you talk about working class issues, you're all of a sudden a communist, and they're going to start commencing a Red Scare 2.0. Then what's going to happen is they're going to piss off a large swath of people, and then you're going to start seeing labor organizing, like, revive in the United States. That is my prediction. Tell me I'm wrong, but in 6 months' time, you'll see that happen. That's my bet. I can't trust the normies to fall in line with the right leadership, even if the revolution was done by absolutely correct revolutionaries. Oh yeah, that's why I made that video on Chaz, man. That's why I made that video on Chaz. But as much as I love your guys' company, I've enjoyed having you guys here. It is getting a bit late, and we've had a really good stream that's gone on for 2 hours. We've had some very good conversations. We brought some really cool people on the stream. But, you know, all good things must come to an end. So, as much as I appreciate you guys' company, I'm going to go ahead and close off the stream. Anybody else got any final remarks they want to say before I start closing off? Yeah, go
Marx
for it, Dumbo.
predicted all of this. The man was prescient.
Yep. With that being said, I enjoy your guys' company. Stick around for future streams. I will be streaming in the future, so I hope to see you guys in future streams. Take it easy.